from other organization that have some influence on the market. Something to that effect.
Man, you see the lens here is dirty on that one. It's either the lens or on the sensor itself. It needs to just blow off. But you can do that later. You need the blower. All right, I'm gonna go on. Hmm? No, you could do when you get a chance. But all right, I'm gonna go on. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Sunday live stream. Got a little bit of overcast here today in the grill. Show me. Hello there. Got a little bit of overcast here today. Chad, you can just raise it up a little bit. It's cutting off my head. Of course, please let me know where everybody is chiming in from. What city, what states, what country, of course. We're a pretty interesting one today. This is I would say a relatively hot topic that we're going to be talking about, which is the political pay increases, the government pay increases that were recently announced that has come with a tremendous amount of pushback from the public. And we're going to be having a discussion on it today, actually having Mr. Rose come on at the top of the hour in about 59 minutes. We've had him on before, and I would say I want to learn more about it. Of course, we've done our research here on it, but we do want to get a little bit of perspective. And you hear, at least in the discussions and in the comments, it's mostly it's all pushback. I haven't seen that many comments of that many people who are supporting it, but nonetheless, I think this is a good opportunity to learn and a good opportunity to get an understanding of the justification for this, and perhaps there are great reasons for this happening, but maybe not. But before we get into that, of course, we're going to go through our updates on the channel and things that are happening in the world of Thought Media and Drop X, of course. We want to talk about that. And then at the top of the hour, we will have our guests join us and then talk about the subject at hand. As mentioned before, we have a chill day here in the grill, overcast. We've gotten sprinkles of rain the last few days, and it's threatening here, but it's holding strong. I don't know, that's probably the best way I could describe it in terms of the weather. And then with the overcast, it's also very, it's humid. That's the other. It's already humid here. Very tough to run in. I can tell you that from this morning and the last couple of days, it's been challenging to run in. But I guess I'm used to it at this point. As far as updates go, we released a video yesterday on the channel. We had a conversation with Kyle Edel, and he is a filmmaker here in Jamaica, born in Guyana and migrated here. And it was, I guess, even from my perspective as a creator, I'm throwing it in the comments here. So if you haven't seen it, you can check it out. We released it yesterday. But we saw, or at least I should say, I learned so much from him about the creative industry here in Jamaica and the challenges that particularly filmmakers face here in Jamaica with their crafts, and then also got a really good understanding of the pipeline of talent and I would almost say the lack thereof, because there isn't a lot of opportunity, and it's very, very super challenging to make it as a filmmaker or being in the creative industry here in Jamaica. Well, I think anywhere, but there are some very unique challenges here in Jamaica, and we went through that whole entire, at least from his perspective, the whole entire understanding of what that's like. And very, very interesting discussion. And yeah, you can check it out. I really, really enjoyed having him on the podcast and really getting into the weeds of all of it. I even think we talked about, no, we didn't talk about cameras. We talked about cameras off camera, but we talked about movies, of course, and he's directed a few short films himself. So very, very interesting conversation. So I would encourage people to take a look, take a listen. Let's have with the comments before we move forward. Hey, Donna, how are you? Happy Sunday. Donna's chiming in from Ottawa. Gallimores, good afternoon. Throp, Sunday blessings from Jersey. Fitz, what's going on? Chiming in from Atlanta. Miss Gold, chiming in from Brooklyn. Hello. Chris Hill. Afternoon. Chiming in from Panama City. Awesome. Always nice to have you on, man. And yes, Donna's reminding everybody, please hit that like button. Would really, really appreciate it. It helps out a ton. Kurt says, bless up from Sugar Hill, Harlem, New York City. Love the topic. Heading milking. Are they? We'll see. We'll see. Carly Soul, good to see you. Chiming in from Grenada. Nice to have you on. Jovi, hey, can you do videos about your hotel and the day-to-day costs and advertising as well? Sure. We have some hotel videos planned, but we just haven't had a chance to do the shoots like we talk about it almost every single week. But yes, we will. Thank you for that, Jovi. Peter Risa checking in from Brampton, Canada. Awesome. Everton, good to see you. Thanks for hopping on. And Jovi also asked a question, can you do videos with people doing commercial real estate? Yes, we actually have, oh man, I should have loaded it up. Maybe I still can if I can take a break. We have, let me see if I could, actually, I think I have it on here. So we're doing actually 2 properties. Coming up, they're both on the West End, both commercial real estate properties, both hotels, and we are shooting them next month. Very, very excited for both of them. I think they both have their own unique stories and their own unique opportunities as well. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing those properties with you. And so they're for sale. So I want to be clear about that. They are for sale, and we're doing those properties. Oh, for some reason I can't upload them here. What's a better way to do that? Maybe I could do a screen share. Yeah, yeah, I'll do a screen share. And so it's in. All right, it's in 3 pieces, unfortunately. You know what? Let's test my editing skills. Let's see if I can do this rather quickly. So one of them, you're going to see them. We're releasing a newsletter next week. One of them, this is the video that I'm going to show you. One of them is Somewhere West, and that's actually being sold by one of my good friends, Angela Eastwood. Beautiful property, and we are going to be doing, like, it's a real estate video for sure, but I mean, to me, it's like the if you've ever been to Somewhere West, or if you've heard of it, like, it was such, I would say, a staple part of the Deep West End. And like, even talking to Angela about Somewhere West, like, and getting and understanding the story, it was more like, yes, it's Negril, yes, it's West End, but the difference was, and she was telling me, is it's like the magic of Deep West End. And we always talk about Deep West End here on the channel, and it is a big difference, I would say, definitely from the beach, but even from regular West End and Deep West End. Like, the vibe is definitely different, like so much more chill. And it was just really cool hearing her story. And I think that's such an important part of, especially like when you're buying a business, is like understanding the story one, but then understanding the community. And she just spoke so extremely highly of the community, and that's kind of what I'm really looking forward to sharing. And that she, really, that's what like really lit her up, is really talking about the community. And so yeah, that's what we're gonna show in 1 second. If I can do this quickly, I think I can share my screen here. All right. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. So this video I did very quickly. I didn't plan on sharing this, but it was just like a quick walkthrough that we did. Can you guys see that? Oh yeah, cool. All right, so hopefully you can hear it. Let me know if you can hear it. So this is just like a quick walkthrough that we did of the property. We were just visiting, doing a site visit with the real estate agent. I'm working with Moira Watson, so she's a great realtor here in the region. And we just did a quick walkthrough, my phone, and I just took some drone shots for the actual shoot. So just bear that in mind. This is a very run-of-the-mill. Again, didn't plan on to share this, but here we are. Good question. So let's get into it. Let me know if you can hear it. Hopefully you can. Got ChatGPT right there. Beautiful view. Beautiful views. Let's go out to Google. Doesn't have any water in it right now. This is a saltwater pool. Yeah, I guess they're gonna fill it up for the shoot that we're gonna be doing soon. I don't know if you can see that. Fill it up for the shoot. Pretty nice doing soon. Oh, the coastline. Let's go up. Let me show you some of the views from upstairs. Some of the rooms. Remember these? Not too sure. So imagine waking up to this every day, or going to sleep to this every night. So beautiful, like naturally, you don't even need to do anything. If I had the money, I would buy it. Like, this is heaven. And the neighborhood is really awesome as well. But yeah, we're going to be doing the shoot in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. And going to be working directly with my friend, the owner, on getting this up on the channel. And really excited and proud to be a part of this project. All right, hopefully Miss Perfectly and Perfectly Retained knows a little low. I turned the volume up. I don't know if that helps, but that's just a little bit of a preview on it. If you want to see it again, we can show it again a little bit later. But that's, yeah, thank you for the question. And I'm glad I was able to kind of pop that up real quick. And we'll be shooting that next month and then probably releasing it at some point in July. And then we have another property on the West End, which hasn't been confirmed yet. So I don't want to announce the name of it, but it's pretty much done deal. I would say we're just having confirmation, last confirmation meeting on it next week. Early this week, and then I'll be more than happy to announce, because a lot of people are interested in commercial properties, getting into hotel business, small Airbnbs, and there's, I think, a tremendous amount of opportunity here in Negril. There are a lot of hotels. When I say a lot, I mean more than I've seen. I haven't seen it at this rate. I'm not sure what that means, but could be an after effect post COVID situation. But there are several that are for sale, and as long as, like in our monthly newsletters, we want to put these properties for sale and find good owners that can be a part of the Negril community here to help grow it and help it flourish. And that's very, very important to me. And we're working with different realtors to kind of hopefully find some really good buyers. But again, thank you for the question. Let's hop back into the comments. Hey, Shayna. Always good to see you. Thanks for joining. Mr. Info, hello. Happy Sunday, Miss Perfectly Imperfect. Jeff chiming in from Alberta. Great seeing you as well. Cheryl says, thank you for the content and info you provide us. Absolutely no problem. BCA, nice to see you. Cheryl says, what is the least busiest time that your hotel is booked, if any? Traditionally, September, October. That's just not me, just not unique to here at Travelers, but it is also just the industry in general. But I will say the last 2 years, post-COVID, it's been very steady. Like a lot of hotels usually closed during that time, and most did not the last off season, if you will, because of the demand. And it's not like we're booked out or anything, but it's definitely higher. Like we're used to seeing really 20% occupancy, which is really terrible. I mean, basically you're losing money. You're losing money at that point. And it's gone up a bit in the last few years. So short answer, September, October, and then also June, and it coincides a lot with this school year, ending school year in June in the United States at least, and then starting school year in September in the United States. Hey, Kemi. Claudette Samos, hi Throb. I've missed your show yesterday. I'm enjoying the holiday weekend in Maryland. All right, that's right. Happy Memorial Day. I forgot. That's what it is in the States. I'm out the loop here. Eileen Watt says, hottest topic in Jamaica right now. I can't support Andrew on this one. Okay. Yeah, we're going to dive into the numbers. And I know I'm jumping all over the place here. So for those of you who don't know, if you're a channel member or your Patreon, actually I didn't release it on Patreon, but we'll do it today. But channel members already saw, we have every Monday we release a video for our channel members called Team Stream. And we have a discussion amongst ourselves, the Throp Media team, and about various different topics. And last week's Team Stream was on the government increases, and it was a hot topic. Like I didn't understand, like I saw in the comments, like on Instagram and social media, but I really didn't understand until I spoke with my team and got into this discussion, that how emotional, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but like how emotionally driven that this is, and how much this means to people, and how much this really pisses people off, like in a big way. So it was an education for me, and I learned a lot, and like I said, it was very, very interesting. So if you're not a channel member, you can join for as little as $5 a month, and you can see these team streams on various different topics that we talk about. Some of them will turn into videos, some of them won't, but it was definitely a prelude to what we're going to be talking about today. So again, very interesting, and yeah, very hot topic for sure. Jeff was asking, was that sargasm off the shore in the video? Yes, it was. So we have it. There's none out here. There's like Oh, well, Chad's changing something on the camera, but there's none out here on the beach. There was sargassum there. It seemed, and like, knock on wood, we've been okay, but I don't know if you've been hearing about it, but this is supposed to be like a high sargassum season for the Caribbean, and I've saw like satellite images like of sargassum like traveling around the area, and it's just so crazy. Like this is like a thing now, but growing up and coming to Jamaica, it was never a thing. Never was this like we have seasonal sargassum. It's just like, man, another thing to worry about. But yeah, that's what that was that you saw in the video. And good thing that was just like a test day that we went there and not a day that we were actually shooting. So good observation there, Jeff. Synthwave Pro, good to see you. Thanks for chiming in. Hello, Claudette. Thank you for chiming in. All right. So we actually have also, so I forgot, we have two guests. So Noel is actually here, Noel Phillips. For those who don't know, Noel is a real estate agent in Kingston. We've done several different videos together and about the Kingston real estate series. He's in a bunch of those videos. We still have a few of them coming out still at this point. I'm laughing because we were supposed to finish up the series like a year ago, but so it goes. We're backed up on content. So he's here. He's gonna hop on in a second. And Noel, we've done some live streams together as well, but very informative person. He was a speaker at ThropX as well, ThropX 2022, and he's definitely one of the more, I would say, popular people. Of course, because real estate in Jamaica is a popular subject, and he knows what he's talking about. Shayna is asking, what is sargassum? Sargassum is an invasive, I should say, seaweed. And from what I understand, it is originated in the Amazon, along the Amazon River, and now spreads all over the world. And my understanding, it's being driven by a combination of global warming and basically sewage going into the water. It's basically we humans, we're the ones who created this, from my understanding. And so now what happens, we haven't had it really bad in a few years. We're very lucky. I've seen pictures in Mexico where it's terrible. Not talking down about Mexico, it's just like the reality. But I also like to say, like, we are very blessed and lucky that we had twice that I can remember where it was terrible, where excuse me, where you've had mounds of sargassum along the beach. And I know of other properties north of the beach that they literally had mountains of this stuff. Mountains, and they had to bring in bulldozers, backhoes and dump trucks to take up the sargassum and take it away. So that's how bad it can get sometimes, and it's seaweed, of course, and it's hot, and so after a couple of days, it's not the best smelling situation. So they try to get rid of them quickly. If it's not that bad, luckily we've never got to that point. What we do is we dig a trench here and we bury it, and it actually helps preserve the beach, but it's a labor-intensive situation, I can tell you that. So yeah, that's sargassum. Forever. Thought we'll never finish editing the real estate videos. I know, right? Don't worry, I got my team on it, so it's like it's partially out of my hands, so at least it's not fully on my shoulders. We're gonna get it out, I promise. Hey, what's going on, Charles? Thanks for chiming in. Chad, can you get Noel? Yeah, ask him to join. Jamaican diaspora discussion says, why are so many Negril residents against an airport in Negril? We would love an airport in the Black River or anywhere in St. Elizabeth. I'm living in the UK. I don't know. Like, and I know what you mean. There are people, I don't, there's some people I would say that have this, man, what would I call it? Almost an anti-progressive mindset. And I have my theories on this, like something to the effect of, like, they want things to stay the same here. And a lot of, and like the people who I've seen who don't want it, a lot of them don't even live here. A lot of them are people, and this is kind of good, and hear me out here. There is a lot of people who come down here that are snowbirds that will have been coming here for like 20 years, and they'll come spend, they're in their, retirement age, and or maybe in retirement, and now they're spending like 3 months, 4 months out the year, and they're here for the entire winter, and they feel like they own the grill, and they own a piece of Jamaica, and they're still visitors, and that's great, and I think the grill really brings that out in people, and they feel as if they have a vote, so to speak, and a right to say, and maybe to a certain extent they do. And I feel like a lot of those people don't want to see Negril change, and they want it to stay the same like it was back in the day. Uh, I would even say going as far back as the hippie situation. And so that's a lot of the commenters that I see in these Facebook groups who are against it. It's people who fit in those categories. ICBCA, environmental issues. I haven't heard this, but I would assume that would be my concern. That would be my concern because, as I mentioned, is how the airport has to run unless they have some other way, but you have to cut through the morass, and you're going to destroy habitat. There's no question. But any development, you're going to destroy habitat no matter what it is. So it's kind of like a pick your poison situation here. And this I would say should be the number one concern. And then the third concern I heard was the noise of the airplanes, like disrupting the tranquility, if you will. Like we have like Cessnas that take off from the airport there, the aerodrome now, but we don't have like private jets, and that's probably more likely going to affect, I would assume, more so the people in the hotels on the northern part of the strip as opposed to us down here. But those are the three arguments that I've mostly heard that are against the airport. And then I wouldn't say there's an argument. I guess you could consider this an argument against it, is that they feel the bypass is more important and serves a better precedent than the airport, which I agree with. Of course, the bypass is going to affect far more people, because keep in mind that the airport that they're looking to extend is not going to be it's not going to be large enough for like commercial flights. These are going to be more for private jet situation. So, those are the arguments that I've heard. I've understand them. I think some of them can be mitigated against, but I would like to think that there is more positive than negative, and it's going to bring in money. It's going to bring in jobs, and it's going to bring in a different type of clientele in the grill, and maybe that can actually drive to help build the community here. Okay, thank you for the question. We got Noel Phillips on. Let me see if we can switch to him. No. Okay, Noel's here, but we can't. His camera's not working. Hold on 1 second. We'll get it up. Don't worry. Yeah, it's not. Okay, we're plugged in. Oh, we got it. We'll be there in a second. There we go. All right, Noel.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, we can see you. Take those off. Hello, mic check. Okay, there we go. How's it going?
Good. It's always good to be on the beach.
All right, so this was impromptu. So we
Yeah.
didn't plan this out. So we're just gonna flow with
Actually,
it.
here on other business.
Yes.
Couldn't resist, right?
Yeah. Okay, everybody can hear him okay? I can hear him, but I'm just making sure you guys can hear him okay. Yeah, for the most part. So yeah, what's going on in your world?
Real estate.
Let's talk about it.
That's always going on. So it continues to be what everybody expected. Buildings are continuing going up, and it continues to be the best place to invest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that kind of I was smiling about the other day was actually watching this broadcast on the news a few months ago about the bricks thing.
Mm-hmm.
And just remembering that we discussed it at the Topics conference last year, you know, and watching it coming to pass. Having somebody call me just right after that to say, boy, Noel, you know, I'm really concerned about what's going on in the US economy. There's somebody from the conference, somebody lives in the US and want to invest outside of that jurisdiction. So there are more persons now, even since then, who were a part of the conference or actually watched the videos who are saying, you know what, I think it's time to move now, you know, and to invest in real estate and the security of real estate, which again has never been proven to be wrong or not safe as an investment. So yeah, real estate continues to do what it does. Jamaican real estate, the market continues to do well, and as I say, it's open, and we welcome everybody to come in.
Are there any new developments happening in Kingston that you?
Yeah, like there are. You know, that's a funny thing. Like, right since
sorry, they're saying you sound a little far. So yeah, just,
okay.
yeah,
That's better.
yeah,
So I come forward.
yeah. Come forward.
Yeah. So like there are a lot more, and the thing now is that other than the fact that Kingston obviously is a big city, land is becoming more expensive, and I think with that, stakeholders has been lobbying the government to make a lot of the areas that they want to build and are closer to the city, because those are the areas that have the highest desirability, higher densities. So if you come back in Kingston now, you realize the handful of high-rise that you used to see, because the average development building was 3 floors, maximum 3 floors. But in some of those same communities, now you're seeing 5 floors, 6 floors, you know, all the way up to, I mean, the new building that was, I think they broke ground the other day, which is supposed to be, I think, 24 or 28 floors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are a lot more buildings like that coming, because obviously the land is more expensive. There's no more, you know.
And that's going to be, I understand, the tallest building in the Caribbean.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Caribbean, but it's definitely going to be the tallest building.
Tallest building in Jamaica.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, could be.
Mm-hmm.
If not, it's probably one of the tallest buildings.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you think there's going to be more like that coming?
There has to be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because, and just to share with you guys, like just a minute ago, this virgin that we met through the Topics video just came by to travel just to meet with, actually wanted to meet, went through and just say, listen, the work that you're doing is it means a lot. So like more persons, especially out of the diaspora, who wants to come back, and especially the channel here and the conference and stuff that we're doing, it's making it easier for them, because they're able to arm themselves with the information that they would need to be able to, you know, transact the business that they want to transact, you know. And I think the conference last year was the first of its kind. I've never actually heard of something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so coming out of that, there are more persons who want to come. There are more persons who were investing in real estate only in the US, who now want to diversify. And so Jamaica continues to be very attractive and lucrative, you know.
One of the pieces of feedback that I got from, that short that we created with you, that you were talking about Jamaica and why you opened with why people ask, why is Jamaican real estate so expensive? And you're like, why is Jamaican real estate just now getting so expensive? Right? And so it's a controversial statement, but a true statement. And the controversial aspect of it was that, and it's the most negative comments that I've gotten, honestly. And it was more so, it was like, how can the average Jamaican afford this? This is not for me. This is what the comments are saying. This is not for me. This is not for the average Jamaican. And this is not fair, you know. And I had a sense of fear, if you will, in the comments. And when I read these things, it's just like, oh, I'm being left behind. What do you tell or what do you say to those people?
So one of the things I offer a lot of free advice. So from whether from the conference itself, or a person just called me from my social media page, and sometime on the phone minutes, just with somebody that I've never met before who want to just pick my brain about real estate. What I advise people to do is buy what you can afford until you can afford what you want. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of persons, especially in Kingston, feel left behind is that sometimes sometimes persons are ignorant of how to invest in real estate. You always just buy. You just buy, that's it. You start by buying. And if you make the mistake of wanting to buy, of being very idealistic in purchasing real estate, oftentimes, and this doesn't just happen in Jamaica. If you go back to places like California and New York, the conversations were the same. If you go, their communities, places that people grow up, and then all of a sudden, successful people, investors starting to move into that community. The value of the property shoot up, and the natives feel like I'm being pushed over. That's just how business and the market is. So it's not a conversation that we're having and it's being had in Jamaica for the first time. But I often advise persons to do, if you want to stay in Kingston, buy what you can afford in Kingston until you can afford what you want.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So case in point, there are persons I remember, 5-10 years ago who could afford somewhere in Heavendale or somewhere. So there's this one client of mine
Mm-hmm.
who has been looking for a house to buy literally now about 8 years. So he called me just like a month ago out of the blue and saying, Noel, I see something X place and it's for X. And so I'm like, George, you still looking? He said, yeah. So he's been looking from the area with about $21 million. The area is now $45 million.
Wow.
And there were properties that he could have bought at that time because he had the money, but he was just waiting. He was very picky. And so sometimes you find that persons do this until the market grows and grows and grows, and then it pushes them out, so to speak. Inevitably, there are some areas that are just going to be so desired, and the price is going to go up so much that you might not be able to afford it, or afford it at the price that it once was. But I advise persons to do, buy whatever you can buy, wherever you can buy, because inevitably it's going to continue. As regards fairness, we can have a discussion about anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, "Well, it's not fair that this car is now so expensive and I can't afford it." You can say, "Well, it's not fair that a Gucci shirt is $5,000 and I want one." You know what I mean? But that's just how the market operates. So, what I advise persons to do, just buy. And inevitably, you're not necessarily going to get what you want at the price that you want. You're going to get what you can afford at the price that it is.
My friend sent me this article from the Wall Street Journal this morning, and the context of it was Americans leaving America to retire in other countries, and they were featuring this Black retired couple, or about to retire couple, and they were basically saying, the couple was saying that I don't want to die poor. I don't want to die struggling. And they couldn't afford to live in America and have this decent life. And so they decided to move to Portugal. And their monthly expenses were like 2,000 something US. And now they have leisure time that they can go in the cafe, enjoy meals, and living their best life, so to speak, right? But then you go to the comments, and then all the comments are saying, hey, I live in Portugal. I can't afford rent. I can't afford to live here. And I feel like, I don't know if that has started to happen here.
Yeah.
But it's also like, is there something that can be done about that, about displacing people, or is that the market?
Look, so when we have these discussions, it's prudent to have a holistic discussion about it, because while some persons may be sad that they feel displaced and they feel like they're being forced out of the city that they grew up in because of affordability, also there's another side of the discussion where I'm experiencing, where there's a cross section of wealth being created through real estate investment that the same persons that grew up in the city are benefiting from.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just to say, properties are getting more expensive, because the persons who were prudent in investing in real estate, in buying the house in Portmore when it was $200,000. Because I remember when I was in high school, one of the houses in Portmore and Greater Portmore was like 100 grand,
Mm-hmm.
200 grand. Those same houses, $20 million today.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and I remember when the opportunity to buy it there. I mean, I remember as a boy sitting on the veranda listening to my parents and their friends talk like, Portmore, swampland, I'm not gonna buy over there. But there are persons who went and did buy and took the risk and bought in Portmore and in Greater Portmore and Edgewater and those communities when it wasn't popular to do so. You know what I mean? And I think the same thing happened in a lot of communities in Kingston when 20 years ago when a lot of the properties were more affordable, but choose for whatever reason not to buy. You know what I mean? I've had a lot of experiences with that, and I'm not saying that was the case for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying everybody chose not to buy, because some persons, no matter what the price, it was still expensive. I'm saying that while the market is growing, the nation is benefiting from the growth in the real estate industry and the real estate market, and inevitably, as the product gets more expensive, there are some persons that will not be able to afford it. But there are things being put in place that will help to compensate, because as the city grows out into places like St. Catherine, Clarendon, now there's a highway that runs directly from Kingston when it's finished, from Kingston all the way to Manchester. So if you're not able to afford Kingston, you might have to take a 1 hour, 45-minute drive home, and you'll be able to get a cheaper property in Clarendon, Mayfair, some other area. The same thing is now happening with the highway that will run all the way from Kingston, Harborview Roundabout to Portland. So St. Thomas as an entire parish is opening up, which is, you might not be able to live in Helmdale, but you can afford a cheaper house, 20, 25 minutes away in St. Thomas. So things are being done for persons who will not be able to afford areas in Kingston anymore, but may have to drive, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour to get home to something that they can afford. So things are being done, but I understand the sentiment. I'm a Kingstonian myself.
Right.
Living in the city does mean something, but it is what it is.
Okay, we've got some questions here in the comment section. Kemi says, what about real estate syndication opportunities in Jamaica?
Real estate?
Syndication
Like
opportunities.
group buying?
I would think that's where I was thinking, or even maybe like a REIT or something like that.
I mean, those opportunities are there. Not a lot of them. Like at the conference, one thing that we were discussing is that for what you buy, let's say there's a unit being sold in a new development for $500,000. A group of persons willing to get in the mud, so to speak, to actually invest from a developmental perspective, could get the same property for half of that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's a matter of whether you go to the restaurant and buy a cooked meal, or you go to the supermarket and get all the components and cook the meal yourself.
Right.
It's way different in pricing. So there are opportunities for that. There's not a lot, especially, I mean, it happens locally. I think National Housing Trust is now encouraging that, which allows for, I think, up to 4 or 5 persons now can use NHD loans to buy property. Usually it was just limited to 2. And so the maximum loan amount now has been increased to $7.5 million. And I think up to 4 persons now are able to take out, which would be like $30 million thereabout. So yeah, there's that.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question from Norma Davis. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Throp and guests. Is it advised to purchase property with a grave? And if so, what is the process to remove it?
My property
with a grave on it, like a grave site? Okay.
No.
Don't do it?
Don't do it.
Okay.
I mean, you can, because there is a process. There's exhumation. I think that's what it's called. But the process is you have to get a permit. You have to buy a new lot in a government or a licensed cemetery. You'd have to exhume the body, which you'd have to pay a funeral home, and you'd have to report it. I mean, it can be done. Like I would do it if it's as a real estate investor. I'd do it. Like but it has to be worth your time.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, you buy 10 acres of land that is worth $100, and you're getting it for $30 because grandma and great grandma and grandpa and uncle and auntie and it's painstaking to correct.
I see.
But it's just culture in Jamaica because everybody wants to keep the family close, or grandpa had said, if you don't bury me on the land, you're not getting none of the money, kind of thing. But you can do it. We had a property the other day that was a really good deal for a developer that we sold to them. That the person who was selling the property, I think some ancestor there, so like 80 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and so we had to walk them through the process of what they would take it as contact the funeral home, contact the parish council, contact the police, just to make sure it's not some old mafia murder case.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to report to the police station, you get the permit, remove the body, buy a burial spot in the cemetery, and do it. It can be done. If you're not willing to go through all of the work, don't. Unless it's a case where you don't mind living beside the dead guy. I wouldn't, but yeah. It can be done, and most of the time, 90% of the time, it has to be bought with cash. Because most of the financial institutions will not finance a property that has a grave at all.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, good advice. Good advice. I got another question from Kyle Wallace, checking in from New York. Any developments in Montego Bay? Can I get a market analysis on Montego Bay?
There are so a part of the North Coast development coming in from Lower St. Mary all the way down to Montego Bay. There are new developments that are going up now. So Montego Bay is kind of buzzing now. We could send you the information. Market analysis. So Montego Bay is like one of the major tourist capitals of the region. It's a well-known place. It's also a city. Unlike Negril, Montego Bay is not as laid back, so it's not as relaxing a city, it's a busy city. So that's one of the major differences with it as a region. But yeah, it's a great place to invest. A lot of people buy there. Montego Bay offers local rental opportunities for like persons who want to move into Montego Bay for work, long-term rental, also Airbnb.
Okay. We got a comment and then a question. It's from Oren. The real estate market in St. Anne is crazy, massive boom. Drax Hall is becoming the new Ocho Rios. With that town center by the Nuxford, it's a good look.
What was the question?
It was just a comment about.
Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's just a part of the continuous build out of Jamaica. So, like, I was talking to somebody just over the weekend here, and I was saying, like, there is no deals anymore in Jamaica. I mean, there still is, but not like what it used to be. Because there's nowhere in Jamaica that's really undiscovered anymore. You know what I mean? And all the different regions, whether it's a quiet, more laid back area, or it's more maroon, like in the Blue Mountains, that a lot of cabin development stuff like that is going on. Whether it's Portland, where it's more quiet and it's more villa type property, or it's Negril, where you just smoke a spliff and kick it on the beach. Yeah. Everywhere in Jamaica now has their own kind of following and kind of theme and so on. So yeah, Draxall, all of the North Coast development is kind of peaking and doing well. There's new complex now that I think is almost in front of Richmond Estate, Paradisiac. I think they're just building like phase one, and I think the entire complex is already sold out, like 5 phases. So, and that's on the beach.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we got this is from our guest who's coming on in about 10 minutes, Mr. Andrew Patrick Rose. He says, no problem with the development of the high-rise building in the Kingston metropolis, but what about what impact will these high-rise buildings have on the support services such as fire, water, and medical?
I'm not sure. It's hard to give an accurate answer for that, but I think inevitably, just like the growth of any city, and so Kingston, as regards the real estate boom that's going on there now, it's obviously a growing of the city, an expansion of the city. The density is becoming much higher. So the onus is now on the powers that be to realize, and there are elements of that happening. So some of the corridors are being widened. We saw that with the Constant Spring corridor. We saw that with Mandela a few years ago. We saw that with Washington Boulevard, and it continues to happen, and that is the road infrastructure. Recently, there was St. Joseph Hospital in Vineyard Town, which close by where we did the Deanery development video. Was a private hospital. I think it was owned by the Methodist Church or one of those churches, and it was recently taken over by the government, the Ministry of Health. It's now being added to public hospital block. So it's happening. There's been development, some from the private sector, like the Children's Hospital, which is the only of its kind in the Caribbean. Has gotten a lot of donations. I think the Shaggy Foundation, and they continue to develop those things. I don't know what the exact impact will be, but we know obviously if there are more persons coming to live in the city, there's a requirement for those services to be expanded and to be spruced up. So some it's happening. Is it at the rate that would at the same rate at which the real estate development is? And probably not. But we hope that it will catch up like most things.
And Mr. Rose saying the Catholic Church owned the hospital.
Okay, cool.
All right, one more question, and then we'll get into the last topic. Are there any more developments specifically in Vineyard Town?
There is one that is now seeking approval. I don't know if that's broken ground yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to be a part of that in selling. But there are a few that are in the research phases. So there's one that I know that's close by that is just seeking approvals. There are others, persons that I've spoken to who have property there who are also now just starting the process of looking into, what it will cost,
Okay.
preliminaries. But yeah, there are more coming. Just answer. I don't know when and so on. They're not at the stage, obviously, they're the one that we're doing now. But yeah, there are coming.
Okay, awesome. Just quickly, are you okay with talking about the political increases?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to segue into the topic at hand, which is the salary increases. That is the hottest topic in Jamaica right now. And so we'll just do 10 minutes, and then because I know you got to go, and then I'll bring the guest on.
Sure.
Okay, cool. So we're just going to talk about it for a couple minutes. So and we'll go through the stats and a little bit. As you may or may not know, there has been a proposal to significantly increase government position pay, and this was or has been we were talking about it last night, right?
Yeah.
And very controversial topic to say the least. And I'm really like even going through this whole process of even bringing up the subject is like I was more like, let me educate myself on this. But it's been like from the comments and everything, it's been overwhelmingly people are against it. Yeah, what do you think about it?
I might get into a lot of
Right, I know.
Yeah. But here what? So first of all, it's not just the government whose salaries are being significantly increased. Like some of the things that are not being discussed is the fact that like a lot of the principals and so on in some of the most volatile areas were what they were getting for pay, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so when you hear the entire readout, it's like principals in areas like Vineyard Town and St. Andrews High, I think it was like salary was like $2.something million a year.
Oh wow!
And these are communities where some of them, I mean, you have to call police to take them from kids in school. You know what I mean? And to see those persons now, their compensation packages moving from $2-3 million a year to $8 million a year, which I think is well deserved. My position on the entire thing is that we want to be able to compete with the private sector when it comes down to government offices. And I think that's one of the things for years or political and government offices, they're considered, just blacklisted, and you don't go there. And even real estate, like I was sharing with somebody just like 2 days ago, how government policies affect us directly. Like a few years ago, I think like 8, 9 years ago, to be able to buy or sell a piece of real estate, the government taxes alone is almost 8%. So so essentially, if you're looking to buy like a $25 million house, stamp duty and transfer tax was like about 7%, which easily over $2 million. You know what I mean? Which one of the results of that is that there were quite a few persons who are qualified to buy a house or buy some real estate, that probably because they couldn't come up with that $2 million or $2.5 million cash, they couldn't. When that was reduced to 2%, from 7% to 2%, it meant no persons didn't need to come up with more than like 3 to 5% to buy real estate. And that's one of the things why even the local reaction to real estate kind of took off so much, because there are persons who were qualified, but to be able to save $2 or $3 million to be able to buy the property that you're qualified to buy, they couldn't, because you're paying bills, you're paying rent, you're taking care of your kids. So that's one of the cases in which I see personally how government policy affects us. My view on it simply is, and a lot of persons probably will not agree with me, is that if you were to look at any one of the private banks in Jamaica, let's say NCB or Scotia, the CEO of those banks making 180, 200 grand, $250,000 a year, and the job I think of being the Minister of Finance for the country is more important than being CEO of NCB or Scotia. And I think we want to have persons attracted to those offices who want to make the decision: do I work as the head of NCB or do I work as the Minister of Finance? What the salary package were before is the Minister of Finance was making like 50 grand a year.
Yeah, so I have it here. Minister of Finance was making $7,400,000, and it would go up to 2024. It would go up to 24 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my view on it simply is this: imagine that you're well-studied, well-experienced person in finance, and you're presented with working for the nation. You're capable, right? You're capable. You're somebody that we would want in office. And your options are, because your person study and you go to school and you do that first to be able to be competent enough to take care of your family, first of all. So if you're looking down the barrel of, do I work for the government and lift my country out of the hole that it's in for 40 or 50 grand a year, or do I work for NCB for 200 grand a year?
So you truly believe that these salary increases will attract better talent?
I do. And I think I don't look at it from the perspective of the person. So I'm not saying whoever the Minister of Finance is no, or whoever the Prime Minister is no. I'm looking at it from the perspective of the office. You know what I mean? We want bright, capable people in office. I don't think the person who is the Minister of Finance, who's running the finances of the country, should be somebody who can't dare send a resume to Leacher, because he wouldn't be qualified to even work as a senior manager of a bank, but he's running the country's finances. I think the country's finances are very important. And so I don't care who's in office from that perspective. Like I'm not attached emotionally, but I think that the office must be compensated in such a way that we can attract the best, the most qualified, because obviously the persons in these offices are the decisions that they make, their capability, their knowledge will affect the welfare of the entire nation. No, I don't think it makes sense if you're making 40 grand a year, but you're signing off on $200-300-500 million budget for the nation. You know what I mean? Or because we can't attract the brightest, we attract the person who is qualified for 40 grand or 50 grand a year. The smartest persons go work for the private sector, the private banks or private institution. They're making those banks do well, but the nation is suffering. You know, so my perspective on it is, forget who's in office now. Let's make these offices attractive, that when Jamaica or whoever produce the best and brightest minds, and they have the option to work at a private institution or work with the government, then not only their patriotism should pull them to the office, but the compensation package should be enough to make us as a government, as an office, competitive.
All right, so it's 1 o'clock now. I'm gonna ask our guest to come on to Mr. Rose. And hey, Mr. Rose, how you doing?
I'm alive and still
Okay.
awesome.
Excellent. Nice to have you on again. So Noah, I know you have to get on the
No,
road.
nothing any rush.
Oh,
I'm
you-
in Jamaica.
Okay, so you're cool. You're
I'm
cool
cool,
to chill.
I'm cool.
Okay. So let me hold on. I'm gonna change our audio here so you can hear Mr. Rose.
I'm not sure if they can hear me, but I can hear you and your guest quite
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, so he can hear you as well.
All right, great.
Okay, so thank you again. For those that don't know, this is the second time Mr. Rose has come on and joined us on this discussion, and it always seems like it's some controversial issue. Maybe next time we can do, I don't know, talk about mango season or something instead.
No problem.
But here we are, and as you were just hearing, and know that this is like a very controversial topic, and just the increase. And I think, like, the way I look at it is just like the shock, right, of like 200% increase, and like people are like, inflation is going up, my salary isn't going up, this is not fair, how can this be? So I have a lot of the numbers, so let's bring a little bit of perspective here for the audience. As I mentioned before, the 2021 rate for the finance minister was 7.4 million, and going up in 2024 proposed to 24 million. The prime minister's salary in 2021 was 9.2 million, going up in 2024 to 28.5 million. The opposition leader in 2021 was 8 million, going up in 2024 to 25 million. And as
Sorry
Noel
about
mentioned,
that.
yeah, no problem. As Noel mentioned, there are other. It's not just the political salaries that are going up. So I'm just going to put out a few other examples. The Jamaica Constabulary Force, the salary scale of the Deputy Commissioner of Police was between 9 and 10 million in 2021, April 2021, and now is 14 to 17 million as of April 1st, 2023. The pay scale of a superintendent of police was 5.6 to 6.7 million per year as of April 1st, 2021, and is now between 9.5 million and 11.6 million in 2023. The leadership levels of the legal professions are as follows. A legal officer 6 has moved from between 4.9 and 5.9 in April 2021 to 10.1 to 13.6 as of April 2023. Moving into the medical profession, nursing professionals have moved from 3.5 between 3.5 and 4.2 as of April 21st, 2021, and has moved to 9.2 to 10 between the scale of 9.2 and basically 11 million in 2023. The salary scale of medical doctors at the MO3 level has moved from 3.06 million to between 3.3 million and 3.6 million in 2021, and is now between 8.2 million and 9.8 million as of April 2023. The teaching profession, the salary scale for principals of larger tertiary colleges has moved from between 4.3 and 4.9, has now moved between 10.4 and 13.3. The salary scale of principals in the largest secondary schools has moved from between 2.9 and 3.4, up to 8.5, between 8.5 and 10.9 in 2023. And let's do one more here. The salary scale for master's teachers has moved between 1.6 and 1.86 to 4 million to 5.1 million. So, sorry, let's do one more. And at the leadership levels in the civil services, the salary scale for the permanent secretaries has moved from between 7.4 and 9.26 up to 15.8 to 21.2. And we'll just read out what the opposition's response to the salary increase. The opposition's People's National Party in Jamaica has expressed strong disagreement with the significant salary increases for parliamentarians, contradicting their initial response to the pay hikes. The PNP initially stated that it had no issue with the announced increases made by the Finance Minister, Dr. Nigel Clark. However, in a recent media release, the party stated its objection to the massive raise for cabinet ministers and members of parliament, citing the government's failure to address the concerns of teachers, nurses, police officers, and other civil servants affected by the recent public sector compensation restructuring. The PNP criticized the lack of consultation with the opposition before the decision was made and condemned the government for rewarding cabinet ministers and MPs while neglecting the concerns of public servants. The PNP called for a reopening of negotiations with unions representing public servants. Opposition leader Mark Golding, in his disapproval of the government's salary increase, criticized the disparity between the salaries of Jamaican politicians and their counterparts in other countries with better economic performances. And I quote, "It's unjustifiable for Jamaica to be paying its political class of levels which are way out of whack of our regional peers. Countries like Bahamas, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and so on. Countries that enjoy much higher income per capita than we do. Countries that have achieved higher levels of growth than we have. How do we justify giving such a huge increase overnight to political class?" And I will read and this is the Prime Minister. Okay, public's response to the announcements. They're kind of all over the place. "Quote unquote, you get what you pay for. There's an overall connection between a person's qualifications, experience, and performance. Most experienced attorneys practicing in Jamaica charge in excess of $300 per hour, sometimes more. This is 20 times the salary of an MP. If lawyers and doctors can charge more based on their experience and qualifications, how is it that a 5-term elected MP is paid at the same scale as a first-term MP?" Pretty much what Noel was saying earlier. Another ideology, the prevention of civil unrest. Most members of the public fail to appreciate one of the most important roles of an MP, that of absorbing the frustrations of our people by providing a listening ear and coaching them to acceptable solutions to their problems. We all deplore the level of violence in the society, but it could be argued that the daily interventions of our MPs may be the thin wedge which has prevented whole-scale civil unrest. And last one, government waging class warfare. The worst thing about this is how disconnected the PM, the finance minister, and the rest of the parliament are from the Jamaican people. They have no sense of the anger and frustration reverberating throughout the country. The Jamaican government is waging class warfare against its own people. This is an economic apartheid of the haves versus the have-nots. And this last part, this is the Prime Minister's response to the public's protest of the salary increase. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced that he will decline the salary increase that was recently announced for politicians following public backlash. He has decided to keep his compensation at its current level, stating he was moved by the argument that politicians should show solidarity with the suffering of the people. He acknowledged the historical distrust of the political class and the expectation that politicians should not prioritize their own interests. He also emphasized that the need to attract the best talent into politics and improve the motivation and productivity of the public sector. Holness believes that the compensation system, combined with new performance management and accountability system, will contribute to achieving these goals. He called for understanding and support from the public in this decision. Okay, that should build quite a bit of context. So, Mr. Rose, we haven't heard from you, so I will go ahead and throw it over to you and get your thoughts on these happenings.
All right. So good afternoon to you and your listeners again. It's good to be here.
And I'm
And there are
sorry, Mr.
several
Rose.
things that goes through my.
Mr. Rose, if you could, I didn't do a good job of this, but could you just introduce yourself as well and a little bit on your background so everybody knows who you are?
Oh, well, I've been an educator for the last 30 plus years. My main areas are physical education and the sciences. And of course, I've had leadership position, middle management position, head of department, grade supervisor. I've also assessed students at CXC and CAPE and university level in my subject area. I'm president of the Physical Education Professionals of Jamaica, which is all the teachers who teach physical education and sports at primary, secondary, and at tertiary level. And of course, I'm also the regional mentoring officer, which means I'm in charge of persons who are mentors within the teaching profession within Region 1, which is Kingston, St. Andrew, and St. Thomas, essentially. And so that's basically my background. So I'm primarily an educator is what I do. And of course, I'm also a coach, netball. I've served as director on Netball Jamaica. I've served on the board of when like they were reforming Jamaica football. And so I've had experience in administration in sports too. But teaching is really where the love is.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, if you will, yeah.
All right. So the background is well, the first thing is that if I may put a little plug is that people tend to think that the moment you're involved with sports or you're just teacher or coach of sports, then you're basically a dunce because they feel like only people who are intellectually deficient go into sports. Couldn't be further from the truth because the kind of critical thinking and creativity and innovation you have to show when you're on the field are things that are necessary to be successful in life and lifespan. And so sports has a direct connection with your cognitive development from the time when you were born all the way until you're 90 plus or whenever it is. And it helps, it's one of the studies now that is showing that it can assist with Alzheimer's and reduction and all that kind of stuff. So just to give you that background a little bit.
Totally agree.
And so in terms of the critical thinking part of it, I agree with I forgot your name, my apologies. Noel. Right. So Noel, in perspective in that as educators, we really don't have a problem with the salary of the prime minister, to be honest with you. Don't have a problem with the MP and the Minister of Finance and whatever it is. That's really not the challenge. Yes. But what we feel is that, like probably like one of the persons said in their comments, is that there's a disconnect between what it is that you say, what it is that you do, what it is that you expect me, who is somebody who has a brain and can think, to accept and to understand. The argument that they put forward that you want to attract the best and brightest minds, who's going to teach them? Who's going to develop those best and brightest minds? And if I'm going to be underpaid, underserved, and undervalued, how motivated am I going to be to develop those kind of persons that is going to impact in a positive way my country and its continued development, right? Because if my salary is moving from 1.7, 1.8 million per year, and I'm probably at the top of the scale, not using myself as an example, per year, to $3 million, what kind of increase is that? When you're taking home another $10,000 plus per month, $20,000 per month, but somebody else, and then don't even look at the principals and whatever it is, because they were saying that they were moving from 2.2, 2.3, 2.5 million, $3 million a year up to 7, 8, 9 million. A lot of that money was money that they would have access to, but it was allowances that they were get, housing allowance, traveling allowance, all these kind of clothing allowance, whatever it is. So, but now all of this is rolled into your salary and it is being taxed. So you end up literally paying less to take home. The government's argument is, oh, but you get a better pension. Hey, I'm living now, not 20, 30 years down the road. What do I go to the supermarket with and survive and whatever it is? What do I buy? I can't go in and tell them, say, I'm a teacher, and they're going to give me a blind and say, all right, we'll give you a 30% discount on whatever it is. And it doesn't work that way. That's not how life works. All right. And so what you're saying, the government commissioned a study, and I'm trying to be as objective as I can here and not as passionate as I could be, but because it affects me and a lot of my colleagues. But the fact that you commission a study for a year plus or 2 years with one of the top consultancy firm, Ernst and Young, in the world, and they come back and tell you that the minimum recommendation that they would give for a teacher entering the profession is $3.2 million. That's the minimum. Yes? And that's somebody who's just coming into the system. No, somebody like myself who has 30 years experience, and you're going to, in the initial stage, pay me the same amount as somebody who just leaving college this year and starting again, give me the same amount. What sense that make? So what my years of service and qualification and experience does for me? I have teachers now who I'm mentoring, right, who they're now into their 4th year of teaching, and they're just finally understanding what it is like to plan a lesson, deliver, and the kind of things that can impact the lesson and how it can make. So they're just understanding how to be a teacher. So if it takes them 3, 4, 5 years just to be a teacher and to gain that experience so that they can impart and positively impact the youngsters that are in their care and whatever. And now, because of the salary issue, a lot of these persons are leaving, and the other older ones like myself are being told, oh yeah, well, you're now 59, 60, we no longer need you, so go home, and whatever it is. And so you're going to have this big divide. Not all of us want to migrate. Not all of us want to go elsewhere or to do what. This is something that and we want to pass on a lot of the knowledge and experience so that you can continue development to the others coming along. So it kind of is like, I don't even know if I try to be as careful as I can, because it's not political. It has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with valuing people's worth and your contribution to the society. Because if you could just seriously, we need to ask for 200% and 230% and 300% increase or whatever it is. Well, you're asking for a 30% increase. When you work out whatever the salary scale is, the agreement was that everybody will get a minimum, and this is, and I'm getting into what the real problem is, right? A minimum of 10% increase for the first year, which would have been April 2021 to 2022, right? 2022 to 2023, and then from April 2023 to April 2020, March 2024, and then 2024, 2025, you would get 20% increase. So in between that, this period now, 2023, 2024, your salary will work out to like maybe 15% or 12 or whatever it is. But then in the 3rd year of the contract, you would get a minimum of 20% as an increase. I always say it's fine, but when you work it out, it doesn't come out that way, because some persons will get 30-something%, some will get a maximum, I think, of 36% is what we work out the scale to be. But there are some persons in that first year who are still working out at 7% or less than what the 10% agreed is. And we are saying to the government, please fix the anomalies. Please fix the discrepancies. You have been written to at least 4 different occasions. We have had at least 2 meetings as from the JTA perspective with the Ministry of Education to say these are the anomalies. Please fix them as early as possible. If you're not fixing them, we can't guarantee normalcy, because people are obviously frustrated. And you not even get a letter to say, we have received your correspondence, we will look into it and we will fix it. You are totally ignored. Now, when you start making noise and the media get hold of it, and then the Minister of Finance is going to come out and say, oh, I'm available. Why you didn't just come and talk to me and whatever it is? That's just total bull. And I'm being very nice. That's just arrogance at its best. And that doesn't work. What you're doing is, again, like alienating the persons who you're supposed to be serving. And I've said it in another forum. Come September 2023, we are going to see the impact of the minister's arrogance in dealing with the issue. of addressing the anomalies, because we already accepted it, but just fix the challenge that we have. There are teachers who in February they were probably getting, say, $800,000. I'm just using a figure. If in March they got the same 800,000. In April the same 800, and May the same 800. They have not seen 1 cent of this proposed increase. And these are the things that we are saying fix. There are persons who their salaries have gone down instead of up. And we are saying, how can that be? If I've gotten a salary increase, how come I'm getting less money? Please fix this. It's not been addressed. And that's the real challenge. That's where the controversy is. That's where the arrogance and the disrespect is. That's what I want to fix. And then the last point, I'm not sure about the legal implication, but the Prime Minister coming out and saying, okay, freeze my salary at whatever it was, 9 million plus for the year. They've already passed the law saying that your salary go up to 21,000 and then 25 and then 28,000. What kind of freeze you're going to freeze it? Mm-hmm. And remember now, all of this must have been passed before March 31, 2023, or else it couldn't have taken effect at April 1, 2023. So if it's already passed through the Act of Parliament, you have to go back to Parliament to fix it. And Parliament not going to go back to fix it because everybody now is going to be affected. And like the opposition says, they don't have a problem with fixing it. And the consultation thing, I'm not too sure about, but I tend more to believe them than the others. That there was some form of saying, okay, we're going to increase it. Yeah, fine, we work with it. But fix the problems in the public sector's performance before you fix your own. And they didn't do that. And that's where the backlash is coming from.
Okay.
That's my thing. I'm not being political because it has nothing to do with, like Noel said, who is in the office. I don't care who, PNP, JLP, no P. You see, as long as you're doing a job and you're competent, pay me whatever it is that I'm value. All right? So that I can go to the supermarket and pay my light and water and telephone and drive to work or back or walk if I feel like making sure I stay healthy until I'm 60 or 70 or 80. And people can look at me and say, damn, for a 70-year-old, you look good. Yeah. But I can't afford to buy the things that will keep me healthy. You know how expensive it is to eat healthy in Jamaica? Jeez.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
So what is the argument against not making that happen and putting things in parity as far as particularly increasing educators' compensation?
I wish I could tell you because I really don't know. It's just the government has just simply not responded to anything that we have said to them about fixing this stuff. One of the things that I know of is that okay, like when say these companies are putting out apps, they send out what you call a beta version, right? Which is the test mode to try to find out how it works, what does it do, that kind of thing. And they collect feedback from the persons and then they fix it and they improve it and then they roll it out. But in those first couple of years or so, they're always trying to adjust and to fix or whatever it is to make sure that they end up with the best product at the end of the day. With the government, what they did was that, if you remember a year or so ago, they literally forced all the public sector unions or the unions representing public sector workers, let me be politically correct, to accept a 1-year deal. Because it says come 2022, they want to ensure that everybody is starting fresh because they want to institute this compensation restructure program that they have. But they did several things. One, they did not pass that information to the public sector unions as to what is actually in that restructure until December of 2022, which is well into the financial year and well into the negotiation period, because that should have started from April 1, 2022. But if 7 months later on, you're just giving me the information, and then 1 month later, you're saying to me, if you don't sign, then you're not going to get the money until another 1.5 years from now, and then you won't even get all of it. So you're putting me between a rock and a hard place, right? By not giving me the information. And when you finally give it to me, the time I have to peruse it, to consult, because like unions like the JTA have to consult based on their constitution with the membership before they can accept anything. The leaders can't just go and vote and say, we're going to take this. So if they get an offer that they think is reasonable, they come back to us as members of the association and say, this is what we have an offer. What do you say? And then the delegates vote to accept or reject. Then it goes back to the negotiating team, and they talk to the members of the Ministry of Finance and whatever it is. And so that process takes time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not just an overnight thing, 1, 2, 3, and it's done. And so that's one. Point two, with the software system that they have in place to pay public sector workers, there are glitches in the system, which is why you have so much discrepancies in people's salaries. And the government has not fixed those. So one of the things that the union said is that, okay, look, we will accept the offer. We'll accept that there are probably going to be glitches, but put in place a technical task force that would identify these anomalies and then fix them as soon as possible. To date, 1, 2, 3 months after the implementation of the system, officially, the government has still not even appointed or given any indication that they will appoint a task force to fix and address these anomalies. Not just for teachers, police, nurses, whoever it is, just public sector workers in general. And that is disrespect. That's where the problem is.
You gonna say something, Noel?
Yeah, so one of the conversation, like, I understand some of the, and I can hear your passion, Sir Rose, about, and I mean, I really must say I appreciate you, Sir Rose, for 30 years as an educator. Like, that's really commitment.
Thank you.
But as long as I can remember, the conversation about compensation for private sector employees have been a major conversation, and it doesn't matter what government, political parties in office. And even though the groups, like the three major employment groups for the private sector is the teachers, it would be the teachers, police, and nurses, correct?
Yeah, this.
I don't see it possible for any one of those groups to be compensated. Like, for instance, I think a good idea would be able to say, you know what, let's raise the teachers by 200% this year, and 5 years time we do the police, and 5 years time we do the nurses. Obviously, that's not going to happen, because if you do that to the teachers, the nurses and the police are going to burn out the country. And if you do that to the nurses, the teachers, and so on. Mm-hmm. And obviously, these three groups together is like what, probably 100,000 people.
Close to that, yes.
And I don't want to oversimplify what your contribution, and I understand what cost of living is in Jamaica, and I absolutely would never want to oversimplify what your concerns and burdens are, but it comes back to the point that I made earlier, and what I really believe, to be able to raise the salary of these important persons. I think these are the most important groups that will allow the country to go forward and to grow in any kind of sustainable way. Obviously, you know what I mean? We can't do it like it starts with the teachers. Everything starts in your hands. You know what I mean? I remember my first teacher, and I was like 3 years old. I remember her this very day. So what you do is very important. Obviously, what the police do is important, and what the nurses do is important. To be able to raise the salaries to at a scale, or to a place where you guys really deserve, and sustain that. There is, 100,000 person salary to what it's supposed to be. Let's say we move everybody's the base salary for teachers up to like 4 million, and the same thing for police. Because I think that would be a decent salary for somebody to live and not even a good life, but a relatively comfortable life.
That's that.
That mean on the other side of where those monies would come from and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So as I said, would definitely want to oversimplify what your concerns are and whatever the desires are for our civil servants, which I think are very important people. But it comes back to what I think has been a case where we just have not had the right people in office to be able to bring the country to a place where, because obviously if you're going to raise the salaries to what they're supposed to be, the tax package on the other side is going to be like ridiculous. We might now have Carl Winthrop and tell him that, listen, the tax on tourists coming in now is going to be $100 per person, right? And then you hear say like $200 gone on bread. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So this is the conversation I have, and I think looking at the model of countries like Singapore and other countries that have raised the standard for everybody, the model of it starts with who is in office. Because if we raise the standard for the persons who deserve it without having the brains in office to be able to steer the ship properly, then inevitably we are doing that to our own detriment, because we can't say, all right, let's raise everybody's salary to what is good, and so that every teacher can afford a nice, comfortable house and 2 investment properties and a comfortable hire to go to work to bad road them, right? But how long can we sustain that for if we don't have the people if the structure isn't properly? So the question is it that the government and successive governments have been just cruel to our teachers and our police and our nurses and don't want to raise their salary? Or is it that the country is not at a place that we can raise 100 people's salary to what they deserve, and I must emphasize that, and sustain that going forward without collapsing the country? You know what I mean? So I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and I absolutely support you 100%. But I think we need to get the brains in office that will be able to do this, because I think I really want that. That's what I want. I want to be able to say the middle class of Jamaica grow, especially for those persons who have committed themselves, because I don't know if I could be a teacher for 30 years. You know what I mean? So I lift my hat to you 100%. So to see somebody like you, Sir Rose, who commits himself to teaching and taking care of other people's children for 30 years, that's only adult life, Bridget. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you can change go to nothing else now. You know what I mean? At this point in your life.
I have other skills. I'm starting to explore them a lot more now, though, in the last 5-6 years. Yes.
Okay, cool. So that's just one of the considerations that I have. So I think for us to be able to compensate all the civil servants, like I think not just teachers, but like Jamaican police, like I have a few friends who serve in the JCF, and sometimes when you have the conversations with them, the work itself is stressing, and the salary package is even worse stressing. Like you're stressed to go to work every day and deal with work, but then you're stressed again at the end of the month. But the question really is, and this has always been my question, if we were to raise the salaries to what you guys deserve at this point, with the income, with the taxation and the country, could we sustain it? And let's say we were to raise the taxes so we can sustain it. Could the country sustain? Could we move GCT to 25% and it's sustained? Is the country at that place now?
Let me answer you in a one word. Yes. And I tell you why I say that. What we have is a system that is filled with loopholes, right? And it's part of what we call, or a lot of people think is like the Jamaican norm, where everybody are hustle a thing, try a thing or whatever it is. And part of the reason for that is that people are underpaid and undervalued, yes, and overworked. Yeah. So if I'm getting a salary that I'm going to be comfortable with, it reduces the possibility of me being tempted by somebody offering me $1,000 to do a thing for him. Yeah. And so the fact that the government is not necessarily collecting all that taxes that it is budgeting for and can do, but in the last couple of years it has collected more than it has projected.
That's right.
Which means that yes, we can afford to do certain things that what we can do. And so the fact that they were able to do some of the things that they did over the last couple of years signals to me that yes, if you put the right people in place, and those persons are here in the country, but gradually more and more of them are migrating to wherever it is that, because they have families to think about and themselves.
That's right.
But if you put the right system in place, it will be sustainable over long term. And so, you know, one of the things, so you mentioned Singapore. Did you know that Singapore came here in the 60s and studied our models and how we do things and whatever it is?
Yeah.
Cuba came here and looked at our education models and whatever it is. And so, but where are those countries now in comparison to Jamaica, Barbados and the others? They are leaps and bounds ahead of us, because where do they focus? Their education system. And because they focus on the education system, you are producing the bright minds that wanted to give back and the bright minds that developed the country. Look at Japan pre-World War, pre-Hiroshima. Look at where Japan is now. Look at what the US is doing in taking the brightest scientific minds from Japan and bringing them to the States so that they can build their scientific base and whatever it is. So the point I'm trying to make is that countries have the capacity to grow and to improve. Jamaica's education system is underutilized, undersubscribed, underperforming, underfunded, and undervalued. And what we are pushing ourselves back is to the pre-slavery mentality, where the mere fact that what we're creating are elitist groups within this country. And there are some schools that are called the traditional high schools, right? Let me give you a little bit of background to why I say what I say. They are considered traditional high schools. If my school, where I teach, not going to call the name right now, but people will know. But my school where I teach, we created and asked the Minister of Education for permission to get Google give us a domain, that we could have our own domain. This is pre-COVID, right? It took the Ministry of Education more than a year to give us that letter so we could send to Google. Yeah? And we didn't get it until after COVID effect. And we were asking for this 7 months before COVID came. Just to give you the incompetencies that we're dealing with. 1. 2, they promised us fiber optic cable. Because of what we were doing in our technology field in terms of developing, because we're saying, okay, this is one area which we can grow to become a school of choice, right? If we can provide all these infrastructure in place and whatever it is, that we can become better, you attract better students so that you can grow. This is probably the only way to go. The government promised us, they said that, okay, when COVID came, they said, all right, guess what? Because of where you are, we will give you this thing by September of 2020. September 2020 come, the end of September, and we ask, what happened to the fiber connection that you promised us? They say, all right, we're having a little challenge. January, you get it. January came and they say, okay, we give it to you September. So they move it another year and a half down the road. Then finally we hear, oh, we don't have the funding in place. But the elite schools, and you can name them. They are in New Kingston and up by Ligani and wherever else and all of that. They don't need, them have far students who can afford to fund these kind of stuff. We don't have past students who can fund those kind of things. But those past students are from the lower socioeconomic levels and group because of where they are from.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is you're continuing this under-educating of the masses, so that what you can do is manipulate them easier. And I've been saying that to my students. I say, stop being manipulated by the political leaders that we have in this country, because they're not going to give you anything that you really desire to improve. Because if you're not able to be a critical thinker, you're going to be easy to be manipulated. And so when election time comes, you dress up in a impy, skimpy, whatever it is, and you're gone and you run up and down and you jump and neck and then you're voting whoever you want to vote in. After the election, you're dead hungry for the next 3-4 years until the next election comes. You sit down and hustle everything. I said, stop thinking that. When you leave school, stop thinking about go look at work. Start thinking about, how can I start my own business? How can I develop an idea that I have, an innovation, so that I can create a niche market, so that I can sell these things to the people and be an innovator, so that I can expand and I can sell off franchises and all kind of other stuff and whatever it is. I said, even if you see you're sitting on the corner, don't just think say you're going to sell sweetie on the corner for the rest of your life. How can I make it a franchise where I can hire people to start selling sweetie on the corner for me? And he said, that me just hustling and making $10, I can now make $100 because I have 10 other 4 other people working for me to be able to bring in the money that I want. And that's how I'm trying to get them to think. But when they just feel, say, boy, sir, I have a young lady that I spoke to 2 years ago. And I said, why are you doing X, Y, Z? What do you want to really do when you leave here in another year? You know what the response was? So that's why I have 3 and 4 people like my mother and live off apart. What kind of future is that we have? And so that's the kind of people that you have. And so that person, as a mother, is going to send her children who are going to be underfed, undernourished, whatever it is. Malnourished is the right word. And they come to me with all these challenges, and then me, out of the little bit that the government is not paying me, is going to make sure I feed this person so that he or she can learn, so that they can go out and make a positive impact in society and don't become one of the statistics who are killed or become a killer in the long term. And so everybody is afraid to come to Jamaica to invest, to buy the real estate that you're selling, to invest in the education sector, to build construction. Mr. Wally for construction. You talk about it. I've drive around just today, drop my daughter up by UE, and I see several high-rise buildings going up. And it's part of the reason why I asked you the question earlier on in the group. What impact does it have on the fire and other services? Because if we have a fire and say the 8th or 9th floor of this building, is our fire brigade equipped to reach up there? What are the chances of those persons surviving?
To answer that specific question, Sir Rose, that one of the things that is being implemented now as a part of the construction is that there is a fire system that is now, especially those buildings, that there's high pressure and fire hose built into the building itself. Obviously, again, we're talking about money when you talk about like outfitting the Jamaica Fire Brigade with new equipment now to be able to reach 10 and 15 floors. One of the things that is hard based on just how numbers work is to, just like in any business, and I view politics and I view the government and running the country as a business. You know what I mean?
Correct.
One I think that is the benefit. So some persons are against the high density development in Kingston, and one of the benefits that I see potentially coming from it is that the tax revenue coming from the high density development will be exponentially more than what was there or what Kingston could bring in. So for instance, an acre of land that was probably bringing in $50,000 a year for tax that now has 50 apartments. If each of those apartments pay $20,000 for tax, it's now a whole lot more.
Exponentially more, yes.
Yeah. So therefore, obviously, to buy now 10 fire trucks that can reach 10 floors is a whole heap of money. You know what I mean? And
Correct.
that is not necessarily money that was on the budget. So,
which probably says that you were short-sighted in your projection. Not you,
I don't think it was
but the government.
I don't think it was short-sighted, but let's be realistic. In most places in the world, and especially in developing nations, the private sector always lead the way in development. You know what I mean? Obviously, as I said, because of the limited amount of funds that the government has, as opposed to the private sector, to wait, let's say for instance, in Portmore or in any region, that the private sector was to wait until the government come in, build out the roads, put in all the sewage system, and then you build. If we were on that and the government said, boy, I don't have the budget this year, it would probably never happen. But oftentimes what happens is that when these areas are built out and additional revenue comes in from that, the infrastructure follows. I remember Jamaica as a nation coming from debt repayment being like 90% of our budget. So dealing with all of that, like if you make $10 and you have to pay $9 out of that in debt repayment, plus to be able to balance your budget in paying private sector and then infrastructural outlay, that's like a whole heap, and as I say, no bias, I'm a numbers person. But I agree with you, but I just look at things from the perspective of being a business. So for instance, even the point that you made earlier about Barbados, I'm 100% on board with you. And I really would love if Jamaica would be at a place where, let's say there was a conversation with the civil servants to say, listen, our teachers and our education sector is way behind where it ought to be. And the country is suffering from that. Would you allow us to compensate the teachers, concentrate on the education sector for 3 years, and then we come to the nurses and then to the police? That would not happen. That wouldn't happen. You know what I mean? And I just
it depends on who you send to do the job. Because if you come and put the argument to the person,
it comes back to my point. Like,
but who's going to educate that person to be able to be able to think critically?
Well, then we'll be educated already because we applied for the job of the Minister of Education or the Minister of Finance. You couldn't be
and to do that sometimes you don't even have to be the brightest mind, Noel.
The guy who we're looking for the job now, you know what I mean? So it's one of the person that may have passed through your hands 30 years ago. Hopefully,
I agree, but Noel, put it this way: you don't even have to be the brightest mind, but you have to have the charisma to be able to connect with people. And if you're not able to connect with people,
I think sometimes we play what I think I hate about this discussion is that oftentimes there is a game that persons play with it. Like, for instance, let's say Winthrop, myself, and Mr. Rose are at the table, and we're saying, listen.
you can call me Andrew. It's not a problem, you know. It's what my mommy called me and all of my friends.
Good. Yes. All right, so we're at the table, and we're in an empty pool, and we're all trying to come out. So we say, listen, Winthrop climb up on Noel's shoulder, and then Andrew climb up on top, and you know, Andrew get to the top, and then Andrew throw down the rope, and we all come out. But if we're going to stay in the pool and say, listen, no, Noel is supposed to go on Winthrop show. Me not gonna make no man go on my shoulder. You know, if we continue to have that back and forth, we're all going to stay in the pool forever. And I think that's one of the things that happened. I think if we had started to have this discussion 10 years ago, let's properly reform the education sector. Let's compensate our teachers properly, and let's get it up to a standard where persons may want to come from Barbados and come from Trinidad to educate their children in Jamaica. When we have that settled out, let's move to the nurses. Let's reform the health sector. Let's pay our nurses. I remember coming from New York some years ago and meeting this young doctor on a flight that said, you know, I finished med school and I move into, you know, some cold place like Canada or wherever. And it broke my heart because, like, as a Jamaican brethren, I'm tropical blooded. I can barely open the fridge too long, much less live in Canada. You know what I mean? And to say that our young people want to do that because Canada is able to pay us better. The reality is we cannot compete with Canada. We can't compete with the US when it comes down to salary packages. But if we were to have a discussion that we really could agree to say, listen, let's deal with it and as a matter of what would best suit our nation. So let's start with the teachers, because the teachers obviously is a relay. The teacher is move off. The teacher is the
driver, the shaker, the
you know what I mean? The person that get up and go, the Shelley and Fraser. So let's give the teachers the baton right now. Let's educate them. Let's build over the school. Let's get new desks and air condition the buildings, and give us 5 years to do that. After that, let's move to the police who are stressed out, and then we're gonna compensate them for the 5 years that they work, and then or we move to the nurses, however it starts. But I'm saying there's somebody who's the head of some organization or the head of some union that can rile up and say, let's riot, let's burn the place down. But the reality is that we can't do all three at the same time. I don't think so. And I don't see that happening without us putting some tax on the successful sectors in the nation and go and tax them into oblivion, which is hospitality, right? You know what I mean? And we're going to probably tax them into, you know, Dominican Republic or somewhere else, right? Or with bread gone up by $100 overnight. Like the reality of it, let's look on the numbers and let's say, how can we fix this? Because you know the funny thing is, oftentimes when we have these conversations, we have them about politics, this and politician that. But I'm a Jamaican that's going nowhere. All 7 of my siblings, it's just me and my baby sister live there. And I'm going nowhere. I love this country today. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I know that. So anything I do, I'm not just doing it with the interest of profit, you know, at heart, but the interest of what is the long-term benefit of my nation. And I think if more Jamaicans think that way, then we stop playing this juggling game, we stop playing this party and color game, and we do what would be in the best interest of our nation. Because our teachers have been lamenting for many years. And our nurses too, our police too, you know, and other civil servants that are smaller groups. But realistically, can we raise 100,000, 150,000 people by what they deserve and still have a country that is not run into a failed state? I honestly don't think so.
And I want to move back to a point that you made earlier, Andrew, which you gave the example of that young lady who had this ambition of having 3 or 4 children that she was going to raise, and that was going to be her life. And you know, you were saying, like, what kind of life is that? And I want to emphasize that this is very much that's not a unique story. That's not a unique perception. That's not a unique way of living life. Many, many young people, that's the way they think. And I've given this example before about a young man that I was mentoring. Kid was 19. I think he just finished high school, had no career path, no plan, nothing. And he's like, all right, I think I want to have a kid next year. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, how can you even possibly think that is going, because the idea is that you raise this kid for 18 years and you retire. And I'm like, yeah, but this is a very, very common thinking. I remember there was when I first moved to Jamaica and working here at the hotel, obviously, and I was talking to one of my employees. He had he had 2 kids at the time, and I was, I think, in my early 30s at that, well, late 20s, I would say at that point. And he was asking me, he's like, how many kids do you have? I was like, none. And he was like, what are you waiting for? And I was like, what? I was like, I can't afford to have any kids. Like I can't. And I just have so much things that I want to do with my life that is just not part of my immediate goal right now. And again, his thinking is, I want to have these kids now, so in 18 years, I don't got to work, and they will work so they can. That's the first time I ever heard this concept, and it was just mind-boggling to me. And so the point is, and I think this is the point that you're making as well, Andrew, is that they don't see another way. You know, this is like, and then same thing with scamming as well. As like, I think that people, and like, we can or can't get into that conversation. It doesn't matter. But like that too is that these young people see this as a way out, and not through education and not through traditional careers. And they go, I guess I can't even call it easy, because that's definitely not an easy route. But I mean,
it's not easy.
They see that path and see that as a way, as opposed to education. And this will be my last point, and I'll let you guys chime in. Is that what I don't understand is at least me looking outside in, the perceived lack of motivation to making massive investments in education.
That's right.
Because I think everybody sitting here understands that if we want to solve our crime issue, it's going to be through education, hands down, no questions. If we want to be a nation of prosperity and innovation, and you were talking about having this thriving middle class, is going to be through education. And what are we thinking is like, there's no way as a nation that we can stay the same with our education system, and our expectation be that we are this thriving country, that we're the world leaders and this and that. Like, we have standouts, no questions about that either. We have people that rise above, that go through all this adversity and become the creme de la creme through all this different adversity. And yes, we can point to them and we can be proud of them, but I'm talking about like on a mass scale. How do we make this be regular, this be the norm? And again, it's education. And my thinking, and I know what you guys think about this, like the only way that this is going to happen is like somebody's going to have to make some sort of, a leader that is going to have to make some sort of political sacrifice, where their term or their time is going to be completely dedicated to this, because this is something, the education, our investment in education, we're not going to see it tomorrow. It's going to be in 20 years from now. And I think the way the incentive system is set up for our leaders is that it's, what can you do for me now? What can I see with my own eyes now that would allow me to get more votes, or to vote for somebody the next time around? So I think that's a big part of it. And we have to somehow work around that, because like you were rightfully saying, like Singapore came here to Jamaica. We were ahead of Singapore. They came to study us. And now we are way behind Singapore. And like you said, leaps and bounds ahead. And we had it, but we missed it. And then last point in Singapore is, as with my example of somebody making a political sacrifice for their term, that's what their leader did.
That's what he did. Yes. And that's a very important point. I mean, the point that Winthrop just made about political sacrifice, and that comes back to what I was saying earlier, Andrew, which is, for instance, Winthrop made the point just now about how what you can do for me right now mentality. And that's not just on the political side. I think our people are socialized that way. So for instance, if you're into the community and you're saying, listen, here are the options. I give everybody $5,000, or I build a brand new school, a secondary school or primary school with state-of-the-art computer, whatever. Everybody going to choose the money in their hands. So I think our people have been socialized this way in a lot of our, especially the needy communities, where the delayed gratification does not appeal to them. And this conversation that we're having, it delayed gratification is at the core, because investing in your 5-year-old in a way that you're not going to see the benefit until 15 years from now, it takes the best of you to be able to appreciate that. You know what I mean? And it comes back to what you're saying. And I'm not just saying that because we have an educator on the live today, but I think of all the civil servant bodies that would really need a 5-year concentration, it would be education. Because I see education the same way as farming. If you go in the field and you're supposed to be sowing pumpkin and you just put a handful of pumpkin seed in one hole and walk away, it's almost impossible to correct it once them all start growing up. You know what I mean? But if you get it right, and even if the field grow up with some bush and you clean it out, it started properly. So I think if we get education right, a lot more things will fall in place. You know what I mean? And I don't think education just from an academic perspective, but I think teachers are some of the most important socializers in our society. Because if you imagine that your child get up, they go to school, and they're with Mr. Rose from 8 in the morning till 2 or 3 o'clock. Most of the time, they're not seeing their parents that long.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So the environment that they're in, the absorbing period of the day, is going to set the tone. And many of us, a lot of the people and the adults that we grew up to be, a lot that we can attest to, teachers who inspired us along the way. So I think if we outfit the education sector how it needs to be, it's going to have to take concentration. And I like the term that Winthrop just used. It's going to be a sacrifice.
And you mentioned the 5-year-old example, like investing in them. And I've been in Negril almost 18 years. And it's so crazy. Like and I guess as you go through your careers and you see colleagues and you see different people go up, move down, things happen. But here in Negril, like you see a lot of like these beach kids, like they grow up on the beach and then they become the adult hustlers.
Yeah.
And I remember this young man when I first moved to Negril. I just started playing golf. I was probably maybe 23, 22, something around that age. And there's all these young kids that come to the golf course and they hustle. They pick up the golf balls that they lose and they sell them back to you. So I always bought like these I forget what they're Callaway golf balls, like very expensive, but we bought them for cheap. And I was learning, so I just buy them from this. But there was this one kid, and I'm not gonna say his name, but he was a young kid. He couldn't have been more than 8 years old, and he could hit a line drive like nobody's business.
Wow.
Incredible how talented this kid was. And it was just because he was just on the golf course spending time there. Absorbing. And incredible. And I even brought like one of my dad's friends. We went golfing. Like he was just so impressed with this kid, and he was sponsoring for a little while, but then he stopped coming to Jamaica and the sponsorship stopped. Long story short, like now, unfortunately, he's just a guy on the street, in the sense that like he's a bike rider. He just had so much potential, and I see him. I don't know. I always say what up to him. I always say hi. He seems okay, but definitely
He's not what he could have been.
Nope. I would say society has failed him. The Jamaican society, Negro society, failed that kid. 100%, no question.
He's not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem I'm having. Far too many of our kids are being failed by the system that we have in place. And Noel mentioned it, and you touched on it too. There have been studies done. Anybody remember the task force and education report that came out in 1993, 94, I think it was, or whatever, 2003. Can't recall the year right now. I think 2003. Yes, there was a task force and education report, and it pointed out all the challenges and stuff that we had. There was another report after that. Don't remember it right now off the top of my head. I probably should have had it. And then there was a Patterson report that came out a couple of years ago. All of these pointed out the challenges and the easy fix with the education system. One of the things that they actually mentioned in that report, which came out in the Patterson report in during after the COVID year, they were saying, look here, it is best you invest now to fix this gap that is going to come up, and don't wait until 3, 4, 5 years down the road, because it can cost you 10 times as much to fix it down there as it would to fix it now, and to ensure that did the government listen? I bet you not. They have not listened to all of this kind of stuff. And that's what we're saying to them.
Andrew, we are going to pay for this in 2033.
Very, very seriously.
You're going to pay for what the gap that has been created
But
because
hold
of
on,
COVID.
I think we're paying for it now because
We are already paying for it.
Simple as skills training. Like skills training in Jamaica was basic. Like when I was in high school, if you're doing accounts, you're still doing machine shop engineering, or you were doing, welding or something like that. So it was just a part of big growing up and going to high school as a boy. Now we're hearing that with the boom in construction that's going on, with the hotels that are being developed, we are looking to import labor, and this is why we're complaining that there's a whole heap of Jamaicans are not working. No, construction is the industry where you could just walk off the road and get that job. You know what I mean? Everybody
Yeah.
lay a block. And you're saying that the industry is booming now, and one of the problems that we're having is we can't find construction workers. Now I don't know if anybody else is seeing this as a warning sign, but I'm seeing it. Like if we can't find construction workers, they're in serious trouble.
I am seeing that too. And but hard trust, I go back a little bit further too, to the 70s, right? And I have tremendous respect for two people in different ways. Two former prime minister, Michael Manley, Edward Seaga, right? Michael Manley had the charisma and everything else. And he said, look here, we need to become self-sufficient and self-sustainable. And one of the things that he did, all the way from basic school to university, he said education is going to be free. The government will pay for it. You go to school there and come out and do it. Then Edward Seaga came afterward and said, look here, I take cash to care. You need to pay for this. And some of it has to come from all of us. Men have no problem. So universities start paying, and then tertiary levels, students have to pay to attend university and whatever it is. Then they also took it out on secondary levels and said, okay, parents need to contribute to all of this. And this is where I don't like politicians. Because they'll come out and say, okay, we're giving the school, and this is where it hurts me. We're giving the school the money to send these kids to school, to pay for the children that come. But it come in 1 year and 2 year and 3 year after you start the program. The school has to find the money to feed these kids. The government giving you money through whatever it is, part to feed these kids. $200 can buy your lunch. You get $200 for 3 days for the week. What happens to the other 2 days? What does a child do? So the school is not going to just feed you for 2 or 3 days and you're at school. They're going to try and find it. So you're now turning the teachers into hustlers, because they're spending more time doing fundraising to feed these kids so that they can stay in school and not be on the street and go get pregnant or whatever it is than it is that they should be in school learning, so that they become better and contribute more to society. 1. 2, on top of all of that, you mentioned it too, Noel, because you touched on it. I have that child for 6 to 8 hours for the day. They go back to the community for 16 hours. So the community has them for 2/3 of the time. They have more influence being exerted on them than I can in the time that I have them. Because at the secondary level, I teach this child for 1 hour, 1 time per week, sometimes twice per week. You see them as a parent every single day. The community sees them every single day. The community has a lot more influence on that child than I can exert in that 1 or 2 hours. But sometimes I do exert enough influence to make a difference in that child's life. Yes, and I can feel back that, because I can tell you that I've seen kids who come up to me, and I repeat this story a couple of times because it just had this kind of impact on me. Where I was walking through the mall in Kingston, and I saw this young man, even look like somebody who just said, boy, yeah, you were definitely associated or whatever it is, but it looked like he was doing okay and whatever it is. And then he was walking with about 3 or 4 other young men. Now, when you see young men walking and go, the first thing is like, oh yeah, probably some little gang or whatever it is, or you just avoid them or whatever. That's part of the psyche that we have. But then when he turned, after he go, like him look and see me, and him turn from the group and him start walking, and everybody else stop with them hand and them keep my look on me. And then he was walking to me like, what did I do now to deserve this kind of attention? And the guy just walk up to me and say, boy, sir, you know you don't remember me, no, sir, but I have to shake your hand. Because if I never did for you, I wouldn't reach the shop I reach in our life. Me have to thank you and whatever it is. No, him say, everything you do for me, really, really thank you. Blessings, teacher, and give me a big hug. No, the say me almost cry was kind of understatement, but because the first impression was different. But if you ask me what I did for him, I cannot tell you because I don't remember. I have absolutely no clue. But whatever it is that I did made an impact on his life to the point where he probably turned from whatever it is I was going to do, which should have been contributed to the crime statistics in the country, to now be a more productive member of society. I can't tell you what I did, but obviously it just feeds into something that I live, where people will forget what you say, people will forget what you do, but they will never forget how you made them feel. That's my philosophy in teaching, and that's how I treat my students. Every single one who walk into my classroom door, I tell them every single day, you are the brightest, best minds ever. You just need to focus and be disciplined, because no matter how talented you are, if you do not have discipline, you will never achieve the things that you set out to do. And so one of the persons who remind me of that is the current one of the ex-president of the United States, who is just, he has never had the discipline to do anything at all, and inherited quite a ton load of money, and then every business that he has started has failed, except grifting off the people them who support him right now. So that's my personal view, and what I don't want is for Jamaica to have that kind of a thing where somebody who is a leader stands up and tell you some kind of stuff or foolishness or whatever it is, and you just figure, say, this is the Messiah, and you give him all of your little widow's might and do what, and so he's building nice houses and starting all kind of business or whatever you, and you're still struggling to feed yourself from day to day. That really makes absolutely no sense, and it wholly happens because you're an undereducated person who's not allowed to think and to grow. I don't have a problem with nurses' salaries, and the nurses, and you mentioned it, Noel, the nurses' salaries are kind of okay now, If you really look at what Chubbs read out earlier on, the nurses are kind of okay, and we not have no problem with it. You notice what our problem is? Fix the anomalies that you have created in the system. 100%. You gave us X amount, all right, fine, we accepted this because we signed off on it. Just fix the problem that we have in now.
That's right.
Why can't you fix it? It's now been 3+ months. Why is it taking so long for even you? And this is where I talk about charisma, which was where I said Michael Mann is one of the persons who I respect a lot, right? Charismatic, he'll come out and say, all right, look, I'm sorry. We have problems. This is the problem. I promise you I'll fix it. I'm not even going to give you a timeline. Eddie Siaga was similar. He will say, okay, this is a problem. We're going to fix it. He was not as charismatic as Michael, but he got things done and people respected him and whatever it is. So where you are coming from, you know, right, which side of the fence you're on. When you get the things done and you're a leader, you make a difference in people's life. That's what I want to see. Making a difference in people's life. And really business which side of the fence you're on. You're not going to help me.
I respect that.
All right, I have some questions.
Government policies, last thing, Trap, before you go. Government policies have a big impact on everything that happens. Can you mention the thing in Portmore, Noel?
Yeah.
The policies, if they give you a tax incentive and say, all right, instead of paying 15% tax, you only pay 5% tax. If you put in the housing and development and what, that's a government policy. Yeah. They're taking a cut. You develop the place. 10 years down the road, you probably start paying the 15%. But you would have got recouped the money that you invested.
Right. Absolutely.
That's a government policy. If you don't have a bright mind to be able to think that and the charisma to come and sell it to me,
absolutely.
How is it going to happen?
That's a very important point, sir. It's very important.
Right. We have some questions and comments from the audience here. BCA Smith asks, where are the funds coming from to pay for these high salary levels? Are they robbing Peter to pay Paul?
No, they're not. They're already collecting all this money, because if they hadn't been able to collect this or have systems in place to collect the money, Smith, they would not have been able to give us the kind of salary increases that they have done, and the ones that they give themselves. So they know that the funds is there, and they know how they're going to collect it, right? Because they're improving all of these collection systems and everything in place. So they're not robbing you necessarily. Yes, in some ways they are. But if you are seeing the benefits of what you're paying as a citizen and taxpayer in this country, then I'm thinking, this is my view, that you'll have less of a challenge with what the money is going to do if it is going to benefit you and the whole country in the long term.
We've got a comment here. Samuel says, salary should be based upon current education and previous experience of candidate and level of responsibility the position requires, as well as tenure and accomplishments of employee.
I agree with that.
I agree with that. But the government's current thing does not say that. Because one of the things that they're doing, just like how you were mentioning, Noel, where they talk about the person or the MP in one of the comments, person who just coming out of teachers because getting the same as the person who has been here for 6 years. That don't make sense. And I did give you the point where it takes 3, 4 to 5, 6 years before you really understand your value as a teacher and how it is that you
Maybe
can
that the education sector needs some adjustment in their reform.
Of course we do. And we are and I think probably we are too, teaching is a calling, they say. And so sometimes we are so more focused on developing the person instead of thinking about ourselves. But I tell you this though, the younger members of society who are entering the profession, they are mercenary is not the right word, but they are less inclined. It definitely isn't, but it is the closest thing you can think of in terms of comparison, because they are more inclined to, if it's not working out, I am leaving and I'm going to find something better down the road.
I agree.
Yes. And it's because of the economic impact.
Yeah. But I agree when with what you just said about teaching being a calling, like absolutely. I personally felt like from, I don't know if they still exist, but from basic school all the way to college level, I felt like I walked through my teacher's hands. You know what I mean? Like there's no teacher that I was in their class at any point in my life that did not have a significant impact on my life. You know?
They still do, Noel, but most of us are in our 40s to 60-year-olds.
That's like,
the 25 to 40-year-olds are the ones who are leaving quicker.
We got the best version of you guys, yeah. So these young people now, I have to teach them.
This is a timely question.
Another conversation altogether.
This is a timely question from Althea. Says our teachers and nurses are leaving the country now. What will happen when we have a nurse and teacher shortage?
The government import them. They get them from places like Cuba, who have excess in terms of the teachers and nurses. But I guess the only thing, the challenge will be the language barrier. But they will take them from places like that, and they will take some of them from Africa or motherland and bring them here. And so it will work out better for them in terms of
where they're coming from.
Where they're coming from in terms of the money and what it is that they get. And then they will offer them some incentives too that they will offer us for them to stay.
Is that happening already?
Of course.
Oh, I didn't know that. Of
course. There are a number of Cuban nurses and others in Jamaica and teachers and from our African countries that are here, yes. Not a lot, but if this continues, then it's going to be more and more. But even if the point where they're going to import, even the point where they're going to import labor. Jeez.
No, right. That's kind of what Noel was alluding to, and he's not the first person to tell me this. When I'm speaking to our contractors that we have here, and most of them are like, even an electrician I was talking to, he's in his 60s, and he says he cannot find a young person to bring up as his apprentice. And I'm like, and he's excellent. He's the best electrician that we've ever worked with here. I mean, diligent. And who is he going to pass this knowledge on to? Who is he going to pass all these decades worth of experience onto? And he says he cannot find a young person.
One of my philosophies is knowledge is power, only when shared. But I have knowledge. Who can I share it with? Because if I've spent the last 3-4 years mentoring a teacher, and this teacher gets to the point where they look at me, no one say, "Boy, sorry, this not gonna make it to them. I'm gonna leave come September." It's almost like I've wasted 3 or 4 years training that person. But you know what? I looked at it another way. They're going to go away and they're going to contribute to the economy of another country. That's what the challenge is. And then we are going to suffer. And the government is not going to see that, because when the teacher leaves, the children who they would have had that positive impact on are the ones that are going to be suffering. And we are going to feel it in another 10, 15, 20 years. We're going to feel it. Sorry, but it is not going to be nice. And you think September gone was bad when they were complaining about teacher shortage and they had to ask people who were retired and all this to come back? Just trust me. Just watch. Already at my institution, I know several persons who are already on their way out. That's almost a third of our staff. Where we're going to find them from to replace it? All these experienced persons with 10, 15, and 20 years.
Is that what you were alluding to earlier in the conversation about what's to come in September as far as the teachers go?
That's part of it, yes. That's a major part of it. You're losing too many. This is not just a brain drain. This is a development drain. Everything that is supposed to contribute to your country developing and becoming the best and the pearl of the Caribbean and everything else that is supposed to be. We have had, my school reminds me pretty much of Jamaica. You have a latent potential that is there. Now let me put it another way. Jamaica is something like a little lady wearing a miniskirt. It's just short enough to cover the subject, but also tall enough to keep you interested. So the politicians come out and they tell you some little stuff, and they say, "All right, we're going to upskill all of our whatever it is that it is."
I heard that one.
And they're like, "Yes, very good, whatever it is." And so you get interested, and you start looking to see what is under the little mini skirt, but it's just tall enough to cover the subject, but short enough to keep you interested. Because you just make the statement and you all want to see it, but you're not going to see it because you ain't going to. So it's a strip tease.
Yeah. It's stripping down.
Yeah, you're promising me everything, but you're not showing me nothing.
But in fairness to us too, though, and in fairness to countries like ours, it's not just as a result of compensation in developing nations. It's also as a result also of skill shortages in a lot of first world countries. Because one thing that you're finding, a lot of teachers in the United States are leaving the profession for what they consider to be. They're not interested, political reason. The teaching profession in the United States, North America in general, is very politicized, and because of that, because of their own conviction, are walking away from the profession. So, for instance, a salary package of $3,500 US a month, that is now all of a sudden short. Like there was a major teacher shortage the other day in New York, and so when you have that, a major skill shortage in a profession compensating at $3,500 a month. I mean, there's no way we can compete with that. That's like $500,000, $700,000 a month. So because a lot of skill shortage in a lot of North American countries, no, that is also adding to it. There is no way Jamaica can, at this point, be able to afford to pay our teachers,
But not all of us want to leave, Noel, because I've turned down the opportunity to go to Florida and Florida.
I agree. That's true.
And it's again the major reason is not the money, is the political interference or whatever it is. How can I develop a mind when you're going to tell me what I must teach them, and they must only learn this and they must learn that?
It's another conversation altogether, sir.
Can I tell you, it wouldn't fit well with me. And so my conviction, my thing is that the person has to see everything, and then we have a discussion around it, and then you come to a conclusion based on all the evidence and everything that you see. But if you're hiding some of the evidence, how am I going to develop a critical thinker? Yeah.
And the person making these decisions are not interfacing with the people that you're interfacing with. You're not only in this classroom, but you're in the community. You're interfacing with the family members, the parents. So you know what the children need more than the person at the Ministry of Education who is back.
Oh, no. They don't think so. They think they have all the answers. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and that's part of the challenge that we have. You said you had some persons that question. I don't want us to be chatting and not paying attention to them.
No.
I think we're teaching them like the political.
No, this is good. This is very good. I do have a question of my own.
Yes.
Going back to the directly to the subject at hand. The president, the prime minister had said in terms of the justification for this, we talked about the incentivizing, best and brightest minds to come into politics. And then he also, my question is like, all right, if that's the route and that's the idea behind it, how do you measure that? How do you measure the performance of somebody that you're paying. So like in a CEO, you gave that example, like and it's a publicly traded company. We can talk about share price, we could talk about innovation, and there is like, he can quantitatively be measured by his performance. How would that work in a political system, or is there an example around the world of how that works? Is, in the United States, it may be like how many laws you pass, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How would that work here?
I don't know. Let me just jump in. I don't know.
I think it would go along the same lines, because
Yeah.
the point that I made earlier about the reduction in stamp duty and transfer tax was a direct law that was passed that immediately affected an industry, because of somebody who was paying attention, obviously. Because if somebody has to buy a house and has to come up with $3 million or $4 million just to be able to purchase, even though they're qualified for the mortgage, obviously that the reduction in the amount of persons that are going to be able to buy is going to be significantly cut. Also, by extension, the amount of persons employed in the industry of construction, going to be cut. The amount of lawyers who will be doing business going to be cut. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the cases where, especially if for industries like that, like construction and development, like finance is
right. But is it like, how do you objectively measure that, and to have like KPIs that are reviewed by either a board but is also available to the public to show that? I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, those are very important metrics.
And I think that's a part of the conversation and a part of the reform, because if we have somebody who is in office and we're compensating them properly, it's now for the public to rise up and to demand the standard from them that we expect and that we're paying them for. Because I think it's very often that we forget that we're employing our politicians, we're employing the ministers in office, we're paying them.
Excellent point, Noel.
Oftentimes what we do is that we just leave it alone, politicians are politicians, whatever. But I agree to paying them, you know what I mean? And as a businessman, I understand that if you are not paying somebody properly and you're begging them a favor to serve you and have compensation, then you can't pressure them too much because they're doing a favor. But if you're compensating them properly and it's on par with other persons of the same qualification in similar offices, then you're expecting results. And I'm not in finance, I don't know all technical details of how running a financial institution or financial sector works, but there are persons who do. And what we're expecting from the public now is that now we have somebody in office, whether it's finance or anywhere. But you're in the office, we're paying you properly. You understand? We're expecting this, and this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
Just like the conversation I used to hear my parents and older persons used to talk about is our bauxite sector. And bauxite mining, for many years, I heard people in the industry talking about the fact that we lost billions of dollars in potential earning because we refused to go further from just mining the raw material to the ground and actually move into manufacturing aluminum locally.
Right.
Those are decisions that are direct policies that somebody who is the head of these ministries could change, could affect, that we could say immediate or affect an industry or a cross-section of the country in the short term.
I agree with you. And like you, I'm not into finance, but the ability to think is one of the things that I'm blessed with. And so, especially because I'm involved with physical education and sports, I can't stop saying it. You develop your critical thinking skills.
That's right.
And so one of the things that happens is that if you're going to pay people properly, there are always standards that you can set. I was part of the team that developed the national standards curriculum that is now being implemented. And I traveled all over the island training persons how to use it and stuff. And one of the key elements of this is the critical thinking skill, and two, Jamaicanizing our education system to make them want to be a Jamaican citizen and to contribute to the development of your country in the long term. But they must be compensated for doing all that. And you can develop. Almost everything is measurable in some shape or form. All right. And so if we invest in education, you are going to see reduction in crime as a number one thing. You're going to see reduction. And if there is crime, there's going to be less of the violent one that people do. You will see more of the fraud because people will sit down around them decks and try to do whatever. Yeah. And just as though they are smart enough to around the system, there are other people who are smart enough to catch them too.
That's right.
And so you'll have more white collar crimes being committed, but less of the violence. And so more people will come to invest. More investment you have, more development, infrastructure, everything else.
Right.
I compare it to when I asked students a question: how is it that young people being physically active can impact the country? And the answers would include things like reduction in your health sector services and the stress on your health sector, development in your infrastructure, because you'd have better roads and all that kind of say piping, water supplies, everything else. The fact that more persons will be fit, and the fitter you are, the more productive you are.
That's
Persons who are fitter tend to be more cognitively in tune, so they can find better ways and more efficient ways of producing things that would cost less money and all that kind of stuff. And I'm saying that if you have all of that and you can relate that to being physically active, how much it is that if you spend money in the education sector, we will have people who will make you be able to recoup all of what you invest over the long term. And if I need to borrow, and I need to give them credit for it, one of the best taglines I've heard is from COK Credit Union that says, invest in your future today. The government needs to understand, if you invest in the future of the country today, they will reap the benefits long term. They might not be around to see it, but if you plant the tree, somebody else will enjoy the shade and the fruits from it.
That's right.
And you can lay back in your hammock later on and say, yes, I contributed to that.
That's right.
That's the benefit of the sacrifice that you would make.
That's right. I agree. Good point, Mr. Rose.
Thank you, sir.
Would you be open, like speaking to incentivizing performance, would you be open to bringing that same strategy to the education system where, and I think this is a little bit more easy to quantify and measure, but you incentivize teachers to, I don't know, it could be like, having X percentage of your students pass CCs, or maybe in the physical fitness, you have a percentage of your school that are participating in sports, maybe even, doing some sort of health measures, because the health profile of Jamaica is going down and down and down, and it's very concerning, and it's going to and continues to be a burden on the healthcare system. But it also starts with students, and it also starts with health and nutritional education. So would that be something that you would be open to exploring?
Twofold answer: no and yes.
Okay.
And I tell you why. No, because when I was growing up, there was a saying said, "Donkey said the world on a level." The education system is similar. There are schools that have literally everything that they want. There are some schools that don't have nothing. There are some schools that have students who come to them with 70, 80, 90% passes in the percentile. And then there are other schools that have students who can't even read their own name properly. Did you know that we found a student a couple years ago in grade 9 who was not even able to identify all the letters of the alphabet?
Wow.
And now when I teach that student to read and that student leaves and being able to read, she's not going to pass 3, 4, 5, 6 CXC subject, but you're going to judge me on the fact that I have a cohort of 200 plus students and only 30% of them pass with 4 or 5 subjects. But I taught this student to read, which was a deficiency that they have that would have underdevelopment for the rest of their life. And you're not going to, how you judge me are based on that. What kind of incentive are you going to give me? They're not going to give me an incentive for doing that as an institution.
Hold on, so here's a question then. And to piggyback on that point that Winthrop just made.
Yeah.
Don't you think that if there was some kind of incentivization on making sure that on performance then, that child could have matriculated to the 9th grade without being able to know all the letters of the alphabet? If there was a case that there were checks and balances from grade 1?
Yeah.
And
earlier, from the basic school level too.
Yeah. Do you think that, teachers coming up? I mean, And you know another thing, like I must say to you, like in the conversation, I can hear your passion for people and for your work. You know what I mean? And I can't say enough that because I can hear that in the conversation here. But to the point that Winthrop just made, maybe if there was a case or there was a way how we could say, show me what you've been doing for the last year with these kids as they move from here to there. Because obviously, not everybody has your passion, and I'm sure you would agree. Not every teacher is as committed to the students like you are. You
But
know,
70%
in
of
every
us are
industry,
more.
some person is just doing a job.
I can tell you, not everyone is, but the majority, I probably estimate at least 70% of all teachers feel the passion that I do and share the passion that I do. The other 30% we can easily overcome if we have incentive. And I give you, just using the same example you give in terms of being able to do that, at the primary level, when you have classroom with 40 plus 50 students in it, how can one person adequately service 50 some? And yet the official ratio is supposed to be 25, 30 to 1 teacher. I can't adequately reach that because being human, I'm going to feel overburdened and overwhelmed and frustrated. And the day I walk into the class and this child is going to come with all of the challenges that they have. And then today I'm just like, me not really care. Just nobody start no fight in my class or do some work with nobody or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I just want to get through the day.
Mm-hmm.
But if the government takes a decision, or when my school asks them to come off shift, so they had the shift system in school, start from 7 to 12 and then 12 to 5. And we said to them, we would like to come off the system because we don't think it is going to work. And the government said, yeah, man, we have it in the plan. We're going to do that. And we found a way to be able to do it for ourselves. And we said to the government, give us 10 classrooms, 10. And we'll be able to even increase the number of students that we could take into the school and feed into. You know how much classroom we got after a couple of years? 1, 2, 3. And the structure is still in place to add additional classrooms and stuff there. And to date, we have not heard anything else about putting in the other. If we get even 3 more classrooms, 1, 2, 3 more classrooms, we could move all of our upper school students from where they are in the industrial. Imagine having a class full with machines and all kind of stuff. How can you adequately service some way? And it's not a practical class you're having, it's a theory class. And you're not teaching welding or carpentry and woodwork or electrical technology or installation or whatever it is. We have all of these other machines to content with and to work around and to incentivize and whatever. You're breaching a couple of standards right away. Because if somebody from the minute the fire brigade comes in and walk into your school and see that thing, they are going to tell you is a safety hazard right away. The minister is going to come up and everybody's going to go on their IRS and carry on and make all of the noise and say whatever it is. But you never gave us the resources to be able to deliver. And that's the challenge I have, Noel. So the incentive starts with providing me with the resources and then judge me now and say, okay, everybody, you all have 10 classrooms, you all have 100 students, so it's 10 students per class. Then we can work.
Have the same tools to start with.
Everybody have the same tool to start with. But don't give one person 90% of the tool and me get the other 10% and have a share it. And then still judge me using the same standard. Yeah. Because everybody is judged on the same standard. Everybody is judged on whether how much GSTAT pass or what some of the name of PEP passes you get, right? And which school you go to. Everybody is judged on the amount of CSEC passes you get with the cohort that you have and K passes. How many persons is judged with how many persons you send to UE or UTech or NCU or MICO or whichever other institution. And then you're going to say that some schools are prison schools and some schools are producing people forward. That's a stigma that schools will never be able to live down because a former Minister of Education said it.
Yeah.
Wow.
No matter what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not making the world a level place. And so the incentivization is going to be difficult, but it's still possible. So you can judge me as a teacher based on what I do, right? But what kind of impact would it have on the students that are in my care?
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
So what do you think, and this is for both of you, what do you think is going to happen now with the political salary increases. There's been a bit of a freeze right now. Do you think this is going to, well, it has brought up the discussion of the increase in pay for educators, nurses, the police force. But do you think that this is going to now move the needle with that? Is this an opportunity for that to happen? Do you think that this is just going to be a pause for the political increase for now, but they will get some sort of incremental increase? What do you think we're going to get
my
out of it?
personal view, no. Notice it's only the Prime Minister alone who has said freeze his salary, right? Which I again say, I don't know about the legality or all the other financial or that works, because it's already passed into law. So for him to just say freeze it, I'm really not sure how that works at this stage. That's one. I have to go to the legal experts, and I saw a couple of comments yesterday that I've not yet been able to read, but I'm going to read what their legal view on that is, because these are constitutional lawyers, and they have their view on that. That's one. Two, in terms of what it does, we're not saying that they don't deserve it, and don't get it wrong. As educators, we are not saying that these political leaders do not deserve the money that they are getting. But we're not going to ask you to not pay them, right? The leader of the opposition say donate the additional money that he's earning to charities that he thinks are worthy of or in need of that kind of stuff. That's fine. That's very philanthropic. But the money is still going to come to him because it's already passed into law. And that's part of what I'm saying. So my thing is fix the anomalies and discrepancies that are currently existing in the salary package that you have already passed into law. Fix them. That's all we're asking you to do. Fix them. And I can say this, nurses have got a fairly good deal from all of this, right? And we're not envying them what they get. You notice we're not even mention them or talk about what they got and what. And you notice you're not really hearing a lot more about the nurses saying X, Y, or Z or whatever.
Teachers are better people.
It is the teachers and the police who are feeling the brunt of all of this. And all we are saying to them, the police want to have a standard 40-hour work week. And if I go over that, you pay me overtime. The government is saying, no, we're not paying because you're police. You must go do all. That's madness. Teachers are saying, give me a level playing field so that I can have the same kind of standards that you come for the elite schools, so I can have 70, 80, 90% of my cohort passing with 5 or 6 or 7 subjects from CSEC when they leave here. If we get that, then we are okay. But more importantly, you give me a salary compensation. I'm telling yourself, me not getting the right money. I'll give you one example why the increase is based on if I'm a person who is a head of department, it's considered a position of special responsibility. That's how it's listed in the legal, the Constitution, Education Act, everything else. Position of special responsibility. And so my salary is going to be based as a head of department on 15% of the first point of the scale. So somebody would just come into the system, 15% of what they get is going to be added to my salary as a compensation, right? For being a head of department. But what the government has done is calculate that 15% increase based on the salary I was getting before you signed this new agreement. And we're saying to the government, you have calculated this wrong. Fix it. It has not been fixed as yet. You not even acknowledge that this is an error and it needs to be fixed. And you have written to them several times and they have ignored you. And now when it becomes a public issue, you jump up on your ass and talk, oh, but I'm available for a meeting and whatever it is. That's the disconnect between the reality and trying to score some political public relations point. I'm not into that. That don't fix education. That don't make me feel like get up tomorrow morning and go to the classroom and go teach. That make me feel like tomorrow when I walk into the classroom, I'll sit down and watch everybody and just say, okay, I only one rule, no fighting. And just sit down and watch them for the next hour and a half until the time that I walk out of the classroom. And when 2:30 or 3 o'clock come, I go on me and say, yes, I taught. That don't make sense. How that help me and the country? I'm creating criminals who later on get robbed, same me, who are also for try even put 2 and 2 together so I can pay all of my bills. And they're not seeing it. They're refusing to see it because when you have persons within the system who work in the civil service, yeah, okay, congratulations, you just had a nice tickle tip. And the persons who work in the civil service, and I walk in to say the tax office, and I say, okay, I like to check on my tax benefits and and I need to get my license. And you say, no, you're going to have to wait 5 working days to get it. And I say, yo, I think I do a thing for me, and I do it. What they are doing is fueling corruption. And until they recognize the error of their ways, it is going to create long-term problems for our country. And Jamaica is probably the best country in the world if only we'll just fix our education system.
Agreed. Noel, what do you think?
I personally hope they don't. As the point that I made earlier, I think all of these offices are very important offices. As I said, it doesn't matter to me if it's Nigel Clark, Andrew Holness, whoever the Minister of National Security is. I think these are offices that determine the climate, the economic climate, the safety climate, developmental climate, education climate of our nation. And I think I definitely do want to have the most competent people attracted to these offices. I think a very important point that I hear coming from Mr. Rose, and I think it is the PR of it, which is the conversation with the person. Because, as I said, going back to numbers, the Prime Minister's salary, the Minister of Finance salary has gone up, I think, by 200% or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's only one Prime Minister. There's only one Minister of Finance. So it's not adding a lot as regards on the burden of the nation. However, the decisions made by these people could catastrophically or beneficially affect the direction of the nation. So I go back to the point that we want, and a lot of the discussions that we've been having all day, and the discussions, Mr. Rose, the point that Mr. Rose has been making is the fact that it's just a reminder of how policy affects the nation. And the dictates or decision of somebody in a particular office affects the life of 100,000, 200,000 people, whether they're students, police officers, whatever. So I really do think we want the most competent persons in all of these offices. I think the country is doing better now than it was 10, 15 years ago. I definitely see that in real estate. I think that some of the decisions made over the last probably 10 to 15 years that allow for more development, allow for ease as regards construction and development, as regards ease and relaxation of taxes, has seen more Jamaicans able to afford real estate, more Jamaicans able to invest in real estate. Like just last week, we're meeting with this young couple, I think they were like 29, early 30s, and these persons were on their 4th apartment. This is not the Jamaica 30 years ago. You know what I mean? And this is a protection of native Jamaicans able to create wealth in the country that they live and have this sustainable. I'm saying all of that to say, obviously, the policies that the persons in office implement directly affect a cross-section of the nation in what they do. So I do want people who are capable and competent in office, and I think if you have the salary and compensation packages on par with the big corporate institutions that would pull these minds away, then somebody could think about, you can be a patriot and take care of your family at the same time. So I'm hoping that they don't change it. Back to what Mr. Rose was saying, and sorry, Mr. Rose, I find it very hard to call an educator by the first name, that's why I still call him Mr. Rose.
It's all right.
Let's know as a nation, hold them accountable. We're paying you well, reach your work on time and do something. You know what I mean? Change some of these educational policies that Mr. Rose has been talking about that have been in place for the last 30 years that we need to change to have the educational sector develop in a way that we can be planting seeds now that we'll be benefiting from 25 years down the line.
maybe that's the game right there. Maybe the game is it's like, okay, you get this however many percentage increase in salary, but you have to increase across the board.
Exactly.
Teachers,
Exactly.
nurses,
Exactly.
JCF has to be a part of that, and like that's the only way. And you put a timeline on it,
Yeah.
and like you said, it's one minister of finance, it's one prime
Yeah.
minister, and if they can make that happen, I mean, I think that's something that we all want to see. We all want to see, particularly our teachers. Nothing against JCF, nothing against nurses, but I think that's what's going to change our country. It's education more than anything else, and that is a big first step.
Absolutely.
Well, education is the mother of all profession, because even if it's somebody else who is a carpenter or a technician or whatever it is teaching you the skills that you're going to need to do it. So it's education. And so you can do it. So if those persons are adequately compensated and they have the resources to be able to do their job properly, set the standard and say, look here, this is where I want you to come up to. Right? So, and I'm going to say, okay, in order to be able to do the job, because I can't be a swimmer unless I have somewhere to swim in. We're going to swim in. And the sand? No, I need water. So unless you give me the river or a sea or a pool, I won't be able to show you that I can swim. Right? And so this is the standard that whatever it is that we want, and we're saying, fix this, and you fix so many other things within the country. So many other things within the country if you fix it. But I don't know if it's lack of political will or a short-sightedness in the long-term benefits that can accrue to you as a country and benefit. But I tend to think that government thinks in 3-year cycles. And so the first year after the win, they having the honeymoon and they enjoy all the stuff and things. The second year they pass 1 or 2 little bills that make people think, so yeah man, we start doing something. In the third year they start thinking, okay, how can I retain power? And so they start trying to find a way to manipulate you so that at year 4, they start call election early so that they can retain the power, because the people just remember so that you did pass something a year or 2 ago and they feel nice, and so they can vote for you again and keep it up. And it doesn't matter who is in power. It's the same kind of cycle that they have. And they keep doing this over and over. And I keep saying to my students, you need to stop and think carefully. Don't just because somebody say to you, you're a mule, or come here at 17, 18, you don't have no picnic yet. And so you go get pregnant so you can prove that you're not a mule. But then how do you support that child? How do you ensure that that child is adequately fed, clothed, and housed, and to ensure that that child grows up to achieve the full potential that they can be when you brought them into the world?
So
I really don't know.
Here's a question.
Yes.
We often blame politicians for that, and I agree to that 3 to 4 year cycle in the span of the vision for most of our politicians over the years. But is it that are we partially to be blamed? Because we talk about how often politicians manipulate us, and we don't talk about how we manipulate politicians, because we tell them what they have to give to us in order for us to vote for them. So for instance, let's say for instance, the government in power today decides they're going to reform education, and the nation gets behind that and so we're going to vote for you for 2 terms, because we're giving you 2 terms to reform education, and we're going to hold you accountable annually or every quarter or whatever. Is it possible that we're manipulating the politicians also, because they know that, well, I can't do a 10-year plan, because if in the 10-year plan, the first 5 years, let's say for instance you're planting, let's say when you plant olive trees, it takes 5 years from planting just to start looking like a mature tree, but it can be around for 1,000 years.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So in that first 5 years is the seed phase and it coming together. But because you don't see nothing major, then no, sir, we have voted out the money. And so the politicians themselves are manipulated because they can't do nothing long term, because they have to do, beer and wine and beer and chicken and beer and goat because we want something now. And I think there's another side of the discussion where our people, as a people, we're selfish, because we're individual generation minded people. And I think even I have this discussion with a lot of my friends too, and especially Black Jamaicans. I had the benefit when in my earlier years when I left high school to work with some Chinese people, and I remember the person who was the founder of the family business actually died. And I remember years ago, and I was probably in my 20s, I said, "Why are you still working? Why do you still work and wake up so early and open business and whatever?" And he said, "No, well, if it was up to me, I would stop because I have enough, I can live well. But I have grandchildren coming." At this time, this man never had no grandchildren. But he was planning for grandchildren that he never saw. Now
Yeah.
he's dead, and his great grandchildren are benefiting from what he did. And so I think it's the same thing with our politics. We don't hold our politicians accountable to build monuments and put structures in place that will benefit our grandchildren.
We
So
don't.
we're having this discussion about our politicians are bad, but oftentimes we're not having the discussion about the part that we play. It's 3 million people, it's 60 of them. You know what I mean? Numerically, we outnumber them wholly to one. I don't know the ratio now, but essentially, if what was important to us, and in any nation, unless it's some kind of autocracy, in any nation, the once it's a democracy, the politicians respond. They feel out the people and they know what the people want, and they respond accordingly. Is it that what we're getting is what we have communicated to our politicians that we want? Because I've spoken to politicians personally, and I said, "Boy, I'd love to put a 25-year in plan, but like the first 10 years of the plan might just be the seed in the ground. It might burst year 12, but to tell somebody on 2 consecutive voting terms that we're working on it, you got to see it. You're 30 now, but you got to see it when you're 45, and your child who will be 15 then will be the one benefiting from it. It's hard to sell on a political campaign.
But it's possible.
There's an aspect of it that we need to hold ourselves accountable, because I think the politicians, we don't just react to our politicians also react to us. It's a democracy. What is it that we want? And what is it that we are demanding from our leaders?
Well, that question, I think most people will not be able to answer. But what I want is for my child, one, and then my grandchildren to be able to live comfortable and to be able to own a house or to start a business and to live comfortable and to do whatever it is that it is. My mother never owned anything. I owned a house and we have car and I have tertiary level education. She never had that kind of a stuff. And one of the decisions I made is that I said, okay, whatever it took, my children are going to have at least tertiary level education. So they'll have a first degree. And I ensured that they got to at least a first degree. Now, if they want to go further and get a master's and doctorate and whatever it is, that's up to them. But I created that base for them. The second thing, we made sure that we have land and we have a house. It took a lot of sacrifice, which is probably why, and when I retire in another year or two, it's not going to be the kind of retirement that I had foreseen, but I ensured that I kept my promises that I would create a base that my kids could build on that I never got. Yes? But I made sure that they were educated so that whatever they got, they will be able to sustain it over the long term. Now, if you come to me as a politician and sell me the idea that, look here, in 10 years, this is what I can give you as a country, as a people, and this is how you can benefit, this is how your children will benefit, and this is how your grandchildren will benefit. And you put out KPIs like Trump was talking about. And so every year you come and give me a thing and say, boy, look here, we said we would do this, we didn't achieve it because we had the big hurricane. So it took out 10-40% of our thing, but we achieved X or Y. Give us another 3 months and I'll be able to do it. And I'll come back to you and tell you how we are back on track. And so if you keep giving people an account of where you are in terms of what the targets you have set for yourself, people will be willing to listen to you. But if me not have the cognitive, creative, critical thinking capabilities to be able to analyze what you're saying, then you can manipulate me. And if I feel that, look here, I need to you're going to manipulate me as a politician into giving you what you want. Oh, food today and tomorrow and music for jump up and dance and party and it done. Yeah, then I give it to you and you vote for me and I'm back in power. And all I start doing after a while is just feather in my own nest and forget about you, because you're not even going to be able to see how I'm stealing the money, put in my own pocket or my friend's pocket. I know no politicians who is well paid, but I know all politicians who are benefiting from being in politics.
I remember
Any country in the world you go to, no politician is well paid. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Every politician benefits from being in power or in politics. Every single one of them.
Yeah, I agree. My friend, I remember when I was in college, my friend was a political science major, and I never heard this before. But he told me that you don't go into politics to get rich. But growing up, I also used to think about politicians being rich. This is American politics, that is, and it really is. The idea it's set up, and I think we alluded to this, is more so for nationalism and to change a country and to make a difference in the lives of others. But I know in my lifetime, I think it's just gotten turned into something that it's not. And you see, speaking in terms of like U.S. politics, we have, basically two 80-year-olds that are going to be, one of them are going to be the president of the United States. And it's just crazy to think that you have a country of 300 million people and like these are the best we got, and there's various different reasons, but like in terms of like not having, and there are in my opinion, there are so much more qualified, brighter, young minds that can do that job and do that job well. But at least in the United States, it's gotten so nasty. At least this is what I hear from a lot of people, that it's gotten so nasty to be a politician or to be a political leader that they don't even want to touch it. They don't even want to be a part of it, and they get family get ripped apart, and then you got all these scandals. So I guess my point is this, like, alignment of incentive. It needs to be looked at.
Yeah, well, Noel put it very well when he says you have to think of it as a business, because if you don't, then what's the purpose of having it? So, and in every business that started, they always think like, no business start that they can fail. They never go into a business to fail. And so they have to put in place things that will sustain the business over the long term. Yes. And so this is the same thing with politics and running our country. And if you have the brightest minds, supposedly, running my country, why is it that we are not able to be sustainable in some of the things that we do?
Right.
It just means that they're not doing the things that they should do to make it sustainable.
That's right. That's what we hope will change, That's what
Yeah, well, I really do hope that more persons will hold our politicians accountable. I tell people I haven't voted the last couple of elections. Why? Because the person who they sent to be my MP, and I told him to his face, I said, you do not present the values. You have been an MP for X amount of years. Do you know the avenue I live on? Have you ever driven on it? Or do you know your constituency and whatever it is? I said, you have no clue. But yet, see, they come asking me to give you a vote or whatever. I only see you. This is the first in all the years I've lived here, since 1984, that I've seen you. Oh, you expect me to vote for you? Yeah. What are you going to do for not me, but what are you doing for my community? Yeah, the road need fixed from 19. I'm saying about the councillor. I said, where the councillor get money from? If you not sign off on something, the councillor will get the money for do anything. I said, I know how politics works, so don't come and tell me, because I grew up in politics. I still have relatives who are in politics, who are councillors and MP and whatever it is. That's not my field. Although they try to recruit me more than once. Education.
Mr. Rose, please.
Education is where I found my niche, and this is what I enjoy doing. And I think I can influence more people from this platform than I can from being an MP or a councillor. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I want to leave it there. I want to thank you both. I know this was very impromptu for you, Noel, but I appreciate the discussion and your insight. Same thing to you, Mr. Rose. This was excellent, excellent, excellent. I think everybody in the audience really appreciated this. I do, as we talk about education, before I let everyone go, with our NEAT class, with our Negril Education Environment Trust class here in Negril, we have these tablet programs that we do every 8 weeks. We had our graduation last month. We had close to 50 students that we graduated. So we always solicit tablets for people to donate. And so the class and the cohort that we have now, we're looking for donations of tablets, and you can get them on Amazon. I'm putting it in the comment section there. They are the Amazon Fire HD8s. They're $100 US. Goes a long way. We give them to the students. We use it as a tool and also an incentive for them to complete the course, to show up on time, to have 100% attendance. And then when they graduate from the class, they get these tablets to take home with them. And so we are looking for donations for these tablets. So you can buy them. Basically, we ask if you're coming to Jamaica, you can bring them. And if you also, we have an address in New York that if you do buy one, you can ship it directly there. So if you're interested, you can send me an email at drop@dropmedia.com, and I can send you the address. And it's also going to be included in this month's newsletter. So we would really appreciate your support if you're looking to help educational-based charity here in Jamaica. But again, Mr. Rose, thank you so much for your insight, and thank you again for coming on the show for a second time. I think everybody really appreciated that. And thank you again, Noel.
Always a pleasure, man.
And thank you all out there. Thank you all out there. Oh, the camera's here. Thank you all out there for joining our discussion. This was a very fruitful and engaging one. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. And we will see you again next week. So next week's live stream will actually going to be on Saturday and not Sunday. So it's going to be the same time, but you'll get the notifications in the comment sections. All right, everybody, have a great weekend, and I will leave you with the view of the beach. We'll leave it right there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was laughing because somebody was saying that I would be a successful politician.
Yeah, I saw it.
I just read these all the comments, but nah, I'm an educator. That's how I influence my students to do well.
We needed education.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rose.
All right, thanks. It's a pleasure as always, and thanks everybody for listening to me. Looking forward to your comments and feedback. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Take care.
Bye.
All right, let's go to the beach. Oh, that's not the beach. Oh, that was good.
Yeah, that was.
Somebody's asking for your number.
Mine?
I think I got you. Noel's number is on screen if you are interested in contacting him. It's 876-550-1600. It's on screen. Somebody asked for his contact information. 876-550-1600. Thanks again, everyone, for joining.
You know, for some reason, I don't know why I thought you had said that the KFC was open in the Hilo Plaza.
Oh, no.
Yesterday I drove down and passed Oxford, Mobile one, other Mobile ones, and then I kissed it. I can't get